Welcome to AI Otaku Studio. If you enjoy fantasy and audiobook adventures, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Also, check out my second channel, Infinite Novel Audio, for more anime and AI inspired content. Now, let's begin.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. Chapter 76, Yu Xiaogang, The Sex Information Isn't Enough. Yu Xiaogang's heaven-defying control skill left Yu Yuanjun unable to calm down for a long time. During this time, Yu Xiaogang also told Yu Yuanjun about the passive effect of his second soul ring. You mean your second spirit skill, like your first spirit skill, can not only be actively released, but also passively enhance your basic abilities? Yu Yuanjun asked, staring at Yu Xiaogang. That's right, the second soul ring leans towards the mental aspect, so it can enhance my mental force. With this improvement, when fighting opponents of the same level in the future, unless the opponent specializes in mental aspects, they will have little resistance against my second spirit skill. Yu Xiaogang's expression was also very happy. Having read extensively, he knew exactly what level the skills he gained from his two spirit rings were. Anyway, while reading, he hadn't found any spirit abilities more heaven-defying than those from his first two spirit rings in the information of those recorded individuals. Your spirit abilities, when spoken of, truly make people envious. After a long silence, Yu Yuanjun finally said with a complex expression. At this moment, he didn't even know what words to use to describe the current Yu Xiaogang. It was simply too heaven-defying. White World Spirit Hall. How can he be this lucky? Hu Liana looked envious. As a spirit master specializing in mental aspects, Hu Liana knew the true value of Yu Xiaogang's second soul ring all too well. Active release could form powerful control, and the passive effect could enhance one's mental force, thus complementing the active skill. Hu Liana drooled with desire for such a spirit ability. Teacher, do you think I should also choose a radiant heavenly dragon as my spirit ring, just like Dragon God His Eminence? Hu Liana came to Bibaidong's side, hugging her arm, and asked. You're just asking for trouble. Bibaidong rolled her eyes at Hu Liana, annoyed. Xiaogang's life experience is already laid out here. He has already proven that the ultimate attribute stacking is the righteous path for a spirit master. Your spirit is the demonic fox, specializing in mental aspects. Just follow this path, isn't that enough? Radiant Heavenly Dragon. Yes, the Radiant Heavenly Dragon is indeed skilled in mental aspects. But firstly, the Radiant Heavenly Dragon is a dragon-type spirit beast, and secondly, the Radiant Heavenly Dragon is a light attribute spirit beast. Xiaogang is perfectly compatible with the Radiant Heavenly Dragon, which is why he chose it as his second soul ring. What about you, a demonic fox spirit, wanting to get a light attribute dragon-type spirit ring for yourself? Aren't you afraid of blocking your original path? Hearing Bibaidong's slightly stern words, Hu Liana's face dropped, and she put on an unhappy expression. Unfortunately, Bibaidong wasn't swayed by her act. You don't just act on a whim. Not everyone can be like Xiaogang. A few years ago, I remember a spirit master who wanted to copy Xiaogang's path to rise, hoping his son would also become a strong individual like Xiaogang. He spent a huge price, through various means, to find out what spirit beast Xiaogang's first few spirit rings came from. But what was the result? His spirit abilities had nothing to do with Xiaogang's spirit abilities, and he ended up as a fawn-like monster. Bibaidong recalled that incident and found it somewhat amusing. Cultivation on the Douluo continent is completely unique to each individual. Sometimes, even twins who awaken the same spirit and acquire the same spirit beast can obtain vastly different skills. To simply try and replicate Yu Xiaogang's path by choosing the same spirit beasts as him, one could only say, was ridiculous. But thinking about it this way, the appearance of the heavenly curtain isn't necessarily a bad thing. Saying that, Bibaidong looked at Yu Xiaogang. With the heavenly curtain, those who want to imitate you will understand just how big the gap is between them and you, Xiaogang. Recalling the type of people Bibaidong mentioned who wanted to replicate him, Yu Xiaogang also laughed. Yes, I've always said not to easily copy others' paths, but they never believed me, saying I was holding back. This time, let them see what my path is all about. Was his path so easy to replicate? Along the way, the little dragon's special nature, his father's help, the knowledge he summarized, and his own efforts, multiple factors combined to create who he was today. Even if Yu Xiaogang were to return to the past and personally orchestrate it, he might not be able to reach this point today. Let alone those who were worlds apart from him. The video continues. After acquiring the second soul ring, Yu Yuanzhen and his son Yu Xiaogang returned to the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Upon returning to the sect, Yu Yuanzhen naturally couldn't help but show off Yu Xiaogang's second spirit skill, just as he did before. Yi Hengchuan and the sect elders, who had learned of Yu Xiaogang's situation, were already prepared, but they were still so shocked by Yu Xiaogang's situation that they couldn't close their mouths for a long time. A satisfied Yu Yuanzhen returned home and saw Yu Xiaogang, who was frowning as he constantly flipped through a Soul Beast illustrated manual. What happened? Coming to Yu Xiaogang's side, Yu Yuanzhen glanced at the book he was reading. It was a book recording light attribute spirit beasts. Father, is this all the information the sect has on light attribute spirit beasts? Yu Xiaogang looked up, glanced at Yu Yuanzhen, and then asked, "What is the information not enough?" Hearing Yu Yuanzhen's words, Yu Xiaogang nodded. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, as its name suggests, is a master of lightning manipulation. Although the sect occasionally has members who awaken spirits of other attributes, they are not the mainstream. This led to more than half of the spirit beast books collected in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's library being related to thunder attribute spirit beasts. For these spirit beasts, the sect's records are exceptionally detailed, such as the habits of a certain thunder attribute spirit beast, illustrations, common personalities, how to judge its age, what kind of spirit abilities it can roughly produce, and so on and so forth. All this information is meticulously recorded in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's library, to an astonishing degree. However, for spirit beasts of other attributes, such as the light attribute spirit beasts that Yu Xiaogang now needs, the relevant records are far too rudimentary. For example, for Yu Xiaogang's second soul ring, the Radiant Heavenly Dragon, the family's books only contained a few sparse pages of records. It merely described its appearance, its attribute, how to determine its age, and points to be careful about during battle. As for the rest, there weren't even illustrations. This poses a great difficulty for Yu Xiaogang in planning his spirit rings in the future. Indeed, our family members mostly follow the thunder attribute paths, so not much light attribute information has been collected. Yu Yuanzhen stroked his chin. And if there's one place on the Douluo continent that has more detailed information on light attribute spirit beasts than our sect, there's only one. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang nodded. Yes, there's only one place, and that's the Spirit Hall. Chapter 77, Deciding to Head to Spirit City. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's information on light attribute spirit beasts was absolutely sufficient for ordinary spirit masters. But Yu Xiaogang was no ordinary spirit master. He had risked his life to obtain a 1,000-year first soul ring, and now his second soul ring was 5,000 years old. Having achieved this much, Yu Xiaogang had no intention of being an ordinary spirit master. Therefore, Father, I want to go to the Spirit Hall to study their knowledge. Yu Xiaogang looked at Yu Yuanzhen and spoke very seriously. The Qian family of the Spirit Hall was the most famous light attribute spirit family on the continent. Furthermore, because the Spirit Hall worshipped the angel god, spirit masters on the continent who underwent awakening with a light attribute spirit were naturally welcomed by the Spirit Hall. Beyond that, the personal charisma of the Spirit Hall's leaders had been a topic of much discussion on the Douluo continent for many years. The previous generation's Pope Qian Douluo had gathered a large following thanks to his upright character and clear sense of right and wrong. In that era, the Spirit Hall's prestige was unparalleled. Later, Qian Douluo stepped down from his duties as Pope and handed them over to his son, Qian Zunji. Although Qian Zunji was far inferior to Qian Douluo, countless spirit masters still chose to join the Spirit Hall. If for nothing else, it was because many of the spirit hall's policies truly benefited the commoners. Because of this, although he had never been to Spirit City, Yu Xiaogang had a favorable impression of the spirit hall. However, when the spirit hall was mentioned, the image of Bibai Dong, whom he had met in the Stardew Great Forest while obtaining his first soul ring, inexplicably flashed through his mind. He thought of the promise she made before leaving, that when he came to Spirit City, she would treat him to a good meal. Although Yu Xiaogang didn't lack for food, for some reason, he was curious about what she would treat him to if she actually hosted him. Shaking his head to clear these extraneous thoughts, Yu Xiaogang looked at the pondering Yu Yuanzhen, waiting for his reply. In reality, Yu Yuanzhen did not feel much resistance to the idea of Yu Xiaogang going to the spirit hall to study. Ever since his son recovered from his former dull state, Yu Yuanzhen had been shocked time and again by his son's actions. He had personally witnessed Yu Xiaogang go from being mocked by everyone for his talent to now, where almost everyone in the sect believed that Yu Xiaogang was the sect's future powerhouse. It could be said that Yu Yuanzhen was certain his son would one day be an eagle soaring through the sky. Such a person would not stay in one place forever. However, Yu Yuanzhen hadn't expected that Yu Xiaogang would want to leave the sect and venture out when he was only around rank 20. How about waiting a few more years? You're only around rank 20, isn't it a bit too early to head out now? Yu Yuanzhen inquired. Is it early? Ordinary spirit masters enter an elementary soul master academy to study after their spirit awakening at age 6. I'm already 11. Yu Xiaogang said. Speaking of spirit master academies, Yu Xiaogang had actually been looking forward to them for a long time. He was very curious about what a Soul Master Academy was like, and also about the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament. Besides that, the Spirit Fighting Arena auctions, there were so many things Yu Xiaogang wanted to see. Before, he had to seize every second of his time to cultivate. But things were different now. His cultivation speed had increased, so the curiosity he had suppressed all these years could no longer be held back. Seeing Yu Xiaogang's curious gaze and the undisguised expectation on his face, Yu Yuanzhen finally realized something. His son was still just a child. His previous mature and steady demeanor had made him think Yu Xiaogang had skipped childhood and matured early. Fine, if you want to go, then go. Ultimately, Yu Yuanzhen agreed to Yu Xiaogang's wish to go to the spirit hall to study. With a titled Douluo like himself backing him, Yu Yuanzhen didn't have to worry about Yu Xiaogang being bullied by others. However, his safety still needed careful attention. Although various forces on the Douluo continent currently had competitive relationships in the shadows, they mostly kept to their own territories. For the spirit hall, as long as you weren't a fallen spirit master and didn't do anything detrimental to the faith of the angel god or the reputation of the spirit hall, they generally wouldn't bother you. The Clear Sky sect, 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, and his own Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect were basically the same as the Spirit Hall. As long as no one targeted their titles of World's #1 Tool Martial Soul, World's #1 Support Martial Soul, or World's #1 Beast Martial Soul, they couldn't be bothered with them. As for whether Yu Xiaogang's method of increasing spirit ring age would draw the greed of various forces, it could only be said that regarding this matter, Yu Yuanzhen and the sect elders had already spread some of the truth. Since Yu Xiaogang returned with his first soul ring, Yu Yuanzhen had accepted a long overdue invitation from a certain power and appeared at a gathering they hosted. He remembered that at that gathering, an old rival wanted to take the opportunity to mock Yu Yuanzhen. But after the other party had been mocking him for a while, Yu Yuanzhen started with a single sentence. How did you know my son's first soul ring is a 1,000-year spirit ring? With just that one sentence, the latter half of the gathering became Yu Yuanzhen's personal show. Of course, in Yu Yuanzhen's version, many details of the story were changed. For instance, the matter of the whale glue was hidden. Everyone was disappointed, but they could understand. If it were them, they would certainly have done the same. Without disclosing the whale glue, Yu Yuanzhen also didn't emphasize Yu Xiaogang's brilliance. Consequently, in everyone's eyes, Yu Xiaogang being able to have a 1,000-year first soul ring was entirely due to his titled Douluo father, Yu Xiaogang, pulling strings. Yu Xiaogang didn't bother to correct them. A misunderstanding was good. Prejudice in people's hearts is like a mountain. Once you have such an impression, the next time you hear news about my son, you'll subconsciously think he achieved it all because of my help. When the day comes that my son truly becomes famous across the continent, it will be interesting to see you all dumbfounded. With the deliberate promotion by Yu Xiaogang and the sect elders, the high-level members of various forces on the Douluo continent now knew very well that Yu Xiaogang doted on his youngest son. With this understanding, whenever people from major forces saw Yu Xiaogang, they would think of Yu Xiaogang standing behind him. So there was basically no need to worry about these people making a move against Yu Xiaogang. In this situation, Yu Xiaogang's safety concerns mainly came from those hot-headed spirit masters of commoner origin. Based on this, Yu Xiaogang decided to find a powerful bodyguard for his son. Chapter 78, Yu Xiaogang's Bodyguard. Yu Xiaogang's Study. You're saying you want me to go to Spirit City with Xiaogang. What made you think of going to Spirit City? In front of Yu Xiaogang, a middle-aged man of medium build with a square face and long dark blue hair looked at him in disbelief, his face full of confusion. Lin Lang, you should know that Xiaogang is different from ordinary children. His intellect is extraordinary. As for the path he wants to take in the future, he has had his own plans for a long time. For instance, regarding his choice of spirit rings, he intends to follow the extreme path. However, his spirit is of the light attribute, and the sect doesn't have many records of light attribute spirit beasts. Furthermore, regarding how a light attribute spirit master should cultivate later on, in the entire Douluo continent, which powers experience can compare to the Cayenne family of Spirit Hall. One might be able to make do with spirit rings, but you should be the most aware of how important cultivation experience is, right? The spirit master named Lin Lang couldn't help but fall silent upon hearing this. Because Yu Xiaogang was absolutely right. If there's truly no other way for spirit rings, you can choose one type of spirit beast, find them at different ages, and choose the same species for all your spirit rings. While this approach might result in all your spirit abilities being more or less the same, it isn't considered a wrong method. But cultivation experience is a different matter. In the early stage of a spirit master's cultivation, one only needs to meditate, and meditate more to increase their spirit power. However, after reaching the level of Spirit King or Spirit Emperor, it can no longer be just pure meditation. At that point, a spirit master must deepen their understanding of their spirit and gradually grasp its true power. Never underestimate these things. Often, it's precisely because of this that countless spirit masters get stuck at a certain rank and cannot advance a single step. For example, if a spirit master with a thunder attribute spirit chooses to keep their mind as calm as water and tries to be all-encompassing all day long, that would be a mistake. Because the thunder attribute is one of the swiftest and most explosive among all attributes. Cultivating with a mindset of being as calm as water and all-encompassing will only be counterproductive. The mindset one should truly possess is one that is flamboyant, powerful, aggressive, and decisive. This is what is meant by spirit master cultivation experience. The reason Lin Lang was so clear about these matters was that, in the past, it was for this very reason that he joined the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Lin Lang was originally a commoner spirit master with an innate spirit power of rank 7. This talent was already considered very outstanding among commoner spirit masters. Relying on his talent, Lin Lang's early-stage cultivation was smooth sailing. He thought that at this pace, becoming a spirit saint or even a spirit Douluo would be easy. But after rank 50, he found that his cultivation speed plummeted. Under normal circumstances, with an innate spirit power of rank 7 and no mistakes in spirit ring selection, reaching the level of spirit saint should have been quite easy. But his speed just slowed down. Lin Lang sought out many people, and they all felt his spirit ring configuration was fine, but none knew why his cultivation speed had slowed. Finally, after wasting several years, Lin Lang could no longer bear such progress, and, at a friend's recommendation, came to the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. As they shared the thunder attribute spirit, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect's cultivation experience easily solved Lin Lang's trouble. Only then did Lin Lang realize what the foundation of a great power truly meant, thus giving rise to the idea of joining the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect. Later, by chance, Lin Lang met Yu Yuanjun, and the two got along very well. At Yu Yuanjun's invitation, Lin Lang finally agreed to join the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect. Today, he is already a rank 81 Spirit Douluo, holding the rank of Guest Elder. However, despite being a Guest Elder, Lin Lang still held great respect for Yu Yuanjun. This was because his 7th and 8th spirit rings were both obtained with Yu Yuanjun's help. It was precisely because of this relationship that Yu Yuanjun would ask him to accompany Yu Xiaogang to Spirit City. Since you've personally asked, Sect Master, then all right, I agree. Ultimately, after some thought, Lin Lang chose to accept the mission of protecting Yu Xiaogang. After all, the current Yu Xiaogang was no longer the Yu Xiaogang of the past. Anyone with eyes could see that as long as he grew up normally, he would become a powerhouse in the future. Building a good relationship with such a future powerhouse was no loss for him. Good, I'm glad you're willing. It just so happens your youngest son is about to undergo martial soul awakening. Do you want me to set aside some good medicine for you? Yu Yuanjun stood up and walked to Lin Lang's side with a smile on his face. Then I thank the Sect Master. Hearing Yu Yuanjun's words, Lin Lang was also somewhat excited. Now, the entire Douluo continent knew that the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect had discovered a treasure that could improve a spirit master's physique and increase the age limit of the spirit rings they could obtain. But as for what that treasure actually was, no one knew. Other powers tried to deduce the answer from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect's resource purchase lists, but everything seemed normal, and it didn't appear the sect was buying anything extra. Furthermore, when sect members used this treasure, the sect elders would take concealment measures. Relying on a control system spirit master to numb the 5 senses, they would then enter a small dark room. By the time they came out, the process was already complete. Thus, even the members of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect themselves had no idea what the thing actually was. To use it to improve one's physique, outsiders had to go through trade, while internal members had to queue and apply. Lin Lang had originally planned to apply to the sect recently, but he hadn't expected Yu Yuanjun to take the initiative to offer it to him. Then he would definitely complete this mission well, no matter what. He, little wolf, when you're by Xiaogang's side, don't just treat him as an ignorant child who's still in school. Pay attention to Xiaogang's every move. If you encounter something you don't understand or can't see through, don't put on airs, just go and ask him directly. Trust me, even as a spirit Douluo, you can learn a lot from him. Even if you can't use it, your descendants might be able to. Yu Yuanjun looked at Lin Lang with a meaningful expression on his face. Hearing Yu Yuanjun's words, Lin Lang scratched the back of his head in confusion. However, out of respect for Yu Yuanjun, he still kept this in mind. Seeing that Lin Lang had taken his words to heart, Yu Yuanjun nodded in satisfaction. The person to protect Xiaogang has been arranged. Next is the matter of Spirit City. Should I write a letter there? Stroking his chin, Yu Yuanjun ultimately shook his head. I should make a trip to Spirit City personally. It's also a good opportunity to deliver Xiaogang there myself. Chapter 79 Gold Crocodile Douluo, Love Brain, is the perfect description for Bibaidong. Phase 2 of the comparison is complete. In 7 days, the Phase 3 comparison film will be broadcast. White World, Spirit Hall. After this, it's about the time you arrived at Spirit City, Bibaidong said, leaning against Yu Xiaogang's shoulder. Bibi Dong said as she leaned on Yu Xiaogang's shoulder. Yeah, thinking back on those events now, they're still vivid in my mind. A look of nostalgia appeared on Yu Xiaogang's face. Although his current life was already his second, many interesting things always happened during one's youth. Is it about what happened when Dragon God, His Eminence, arrived at Spirit City? Huliena, who was nearby, glanced at Yu Xiaogang and Bibaidong chatting while leaning together. Not wanting to disturb them, she looked around and saw Kai and Dailiu and the others, her eyes lighting up. High Priest, what exactly happened when Dragon God His Eminence arrived at Spirit City back then? Huliena's curious voice caused Kyan Dailiu to give the nearby Yu Xiaogang an annoyed glance. What else could it be? It was mostly about that kid abducting our spirit hall holy maiden. Kyan Dailiu's voice carried obvious displeasure. On the side, Gold Crocodile Douluo was laughing non-stop. Let me tell you, the story of your teacher and him back then was actually quite interesting. One was from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, and the other was the future Holy Maiden of Spirit Hall. Under normal circumstances, it would have been absolutely impossible for these two to end up together. However, we couldn't stop that girl Bibai Dong from being so stubborn. Later, that kid Yu Xiaogang called that kind of mindset a love brain. I think that term is very fitting for her. Gold Crocodile Douluo's words made Kyan Dailiu place his hand on his forehead. Upon hearing this, Huliena didn't show much surprise. Given how clingy her teacher and Dragon God His Eminence were, saying her teacher had a love brain was completely accurate. Unfortunately, someone was not very pleased. Senior Golden Crocodile, are you really speaking ill of someone behind their back like this? Bibi Dong, who had been talking to Yu Xiaogang, immediately turned her head and glared at Gold Crocodile Douluo after hearing his words. Haha, you think you're in the right. Given the things you did back then, do you dare say you weren't a love brain? Gold Crocodile Douluo immediately glared back. You? Rendered somewhat speechless by Gold Crocodile Douluo's words, Bibai Dong could only glare at Yu Xiaogang in annoyance. It's all your fault for using such a term to describe me. Now look what happened, all my face is gone. As she spoke, Bibai Dong indignantly punched Yu Xiaogang twice. However, those two punches carried no force at all, appearing more like she was acting spoiled. Fine, it's my fault, it's all my fault. Yu Xiaogang shrugged. She was his wife, what else could he do? That being said, thinking back to those years, Bibai Dong really was a bit too much of a love brain. But then again, when he remembered that this love brain was directed at him, then it was fine, he could only say he enjoyed it. Black World Spirit Hall. The Zyro gang over there is also going to Spirit City, but he's going so early. Recalling the youthful face of Yu Xiaogang in the parallel world, Bibai Dong couldn't help but feel a hint of envy in her heart. She and Zyro gang had only met after they were 20 years old. At that time, she had already officially become the Holy Maiden of Spirit Hall, while Yu Xiaogang had come to Spirit City in a private capacity. He hadn't even received support from his father. Relying on his own hard work and knowledge, Yu Xiaogang had attracted her attention, and afterwards the two fell in love, leaving behind some memories. In the years since Yu Xiaogang left Spirit City, Bibai Dong had survived on those memories. Those memories were all she could hold on to. But looking at the parallel world, the 11-year-old Yu Xiaogang was already heading to Spirit City, and from the looks of it, there was a high probability he would become a student of Spirit Hall Academy. And at that time, she happened to be studying at Spirit Hall Academy. Thinking about it this way, could it be that in the parallel world, they could actually become classmates in the same academy? Why couldn't something like that happen to me? Bibi Dong curled up alone in her office, weeping silently. Shrek Academy. Is he going to Spirit City too? Yu Xiaogang stared blankly at the heavenly curtain, murmuring to himself. When Yu Xiaogang recalled his life, he felt as if his entire body was covered in scars. However, if one were to ask which of these scars were the most painful, the first would be his experiences in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, which had already been broadcast. Those experiences made him unwilling to ever return to the sect after reaching adulthood. The second was his experience in Spirit City. He would never forget the day he was driven out of Spirit City like a stray dog by the previous pope, Kyan Zunji. The looks in everyone's eyes at that time, and his own wretched state, Yu Xiaogang could never forget it. Honestly, Yu Xiaogang didn't want to recall his experiences in Spirit City, but after learning that his parallel self was also going there, he suddenly felt a slight sense of anticipation. Because he knew very well that after going to Spirit City, his parallel self would bound to meet Bibai Dong. And then, given Bibai Dong's personality, there was a high probability she would also develop feelings for his parallel self. If things really developed that way, then his parallel self would perhaps experience the same sense of powerlessness from being driven out of Spirit City by Pope Kaian Zunji, showing a pathetic state like a stray dog. After all, Kaian Zunji's attitude back then had been very resolute. After so many years, Yu Xiaogang had come to understand. He was a member of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, and the son of sect master Yu Yuanzhen, while Bibai Dong was the holy maiden of Spirit Hall. Such identities meant they were destined not to be together. Kaian Zunji's action of driving him away back then was correct. Any power would likely have done the same. In that case, if his parallel self fell in love with Bibai Dong, wouldn't he also be driven out of Spirit City by Kaian Zunji just like him? It didn't matter if his own wretched state was shown. Yu Xiaogang had long since grown used to it all. But to see that parallel self, who had always been so confident, protected by his father, and valued by the sect elders, become just as wretched as himself. Just imagining such a scene filled Yu Xiaogang's heart with endless satisfaction. He wanted to see this scene so badly that the longing in his heart even made him start silently praying to the gods, praying that his parallel self and Bibai Dong would definitely fall for each other. It was enough for that parallel self to have had smooth sailing within the sect. The Douluo continent was not a sect. There was no father there to protect and care for you. All there would be are people full of wariness toward you. Yu Xiaogang's face wore a twisted look of anticipation, which was caught by the others who happened to glance at him. Although they didn't understand what he was anticipating, they could guess it must be a scene of that Dragon God Douluo making a fool of himself. Regarding this, even Flender couldn't help but shake his head, lamenting in his heart that this brother of his had completely lost his mind. Chapter 80 Yu Yuanzhen, Xiaogang, Oh. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. When the day for the heavenly curtain to continue its broadcast arrived, everyone, as before, completed their tasks early and waited quietly for the broadcast to begin. Black World 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. To be honest, the appearance of this heavenly curtain has provided us with quite an interesting entertainment project. Bone Douluo picked up a chicken leg, raised a small glass of wine, and watched the heavenly curtain while eating and drinking. Thinking about it that way, it seems Douluo continent doesn't have many entertainment activities. Enning Fengzhai said with a smile. Fengzhai, what do you think would happen if the parallel world's Yu Yuanzhen sent his son to Spirit City? Sword Douluo remained silent for a moment before finally bringing up a topic. What would happen, I'm not sure either. The one serving as the Pope back then was Kaian Zunji. Uncle Jian, Uncle Gu, you should know that man was very forceful. I wouldn't be surprised by anything he did. Enning Fengzhai pondered for a moment, then shook his head. Then Fengzhai, do you think Kaian Zunji would act against Yu Xiaogang because of his talent? Bone Douluo asked. No. Hearing Bone Douluo's question, Ning Fengzhai shook his head directly. We have been watching this from the beginning, so we know how formidable the Yu Xiaogang over there is. But the people of the past haven't seen the heavenly curtain. They have no idea how heaven-defying Yu Xiaogang is. In their eyes, that Dragon God Douluo started as a dull-witted child who finally managed to recover, only for his spirit to suffer a malignant mutation with an innate soul power of rank 1. However, he was lucky because he had a titled Douluo for a father. At the same time, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect discovered a treasure that could improve a spirit master's physique, allowing them to obtain spirit rings of higher years. Based on that, he was able to possess a 1,000-year first soul ring. The truly formidable one is Yu Yuanzhen, and the hidden treasure of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Think about it, if someone with innate level 1 soul power can obtain a 1,000-year first soul ring, what could someone with innate rank 9 or full innate soul power achieve? As long as he thinks of this, Kaian Zunji's gaze won't be on Yu Xiaogang, but on the hidden whale glue. Hearing Ning Fengzhai's words, Bone Douluo suddenly realized. Exactly, Kaian Zunji might even treat Yu Xiaogang very well. Sword Douluo also chimed in. Enning Fengzhai nodded, agreeing with Sword Douluo's thoughts, though there were some words he didn't voice. For some reason, Ning Fengzhai felt that the atmosphere of Douluo continent had changed significantly over the years. Years ago, Douluo continent was very peaceful. Back then, people from great powers traveling abroad didn't have to worry at all about other great powers acting against their geniuses. Just like the clear sky twins of the past. Anyone with eyes could see that the brothers Tang Hao and Tang Xiao would grow up to be two titled Douluos. Yet, whether it was the Spirit Hall, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect, or his own 7 treasure glazed tile school, no one ever made a move against them. They were allowed to roam the continent and grow continuously. In the years since then, at some unknown point, whenever the major powers heard of a genius born in another faction, the thought of whether to eliminate them would pop into their heads. This had resulted in very few geniuses from the major powers traveling abroad in recent years. When exactly did it start? Ening Fengzhai pondered for a moment and quickly realized it was likely after the death of the previous pope, Qian Zunji, and the ascension of the current pope, Bibai Dong, that relations between the various powers on the continent became increasingly tense. Thinking about it, Tang Hao of the Clear Sky sect had consorted with a spirit beast and was beaten into hiding by Qian Zunji. And Qian Zunji himself died of heavy injuries. Tang Hao's father, the previous sect master of the Clear Sky sect, died of anger, and the Clear Sky sect had since closed its mountain gates. With the Clear Sky sect in seclusion, the remaining upper 3 sects, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect and the 7 treasure glazed tile school, were no longer in balance with the strength of the Spirit Hall. Coupled with the fact that the newly ascended Pope Bibai Dong's style of action was even more excessive than Qian Zunji's, it was no wonder the continent felt like a storm was brewing. What a pity that stable environment of the past will never return after all. Ening Fengzhai shook his head and sighed. Personally, he preferred the continent to maintain a balance. Such an environment was truly comfortable for the great sects. In today's chaotic environment, some sudden accident might one day cause the 7 treasure glazed tile school to suffer heavy losses, leading it to fall from its position among the upper 3 sects in the future. That was something he could not accept under any circumstances. I hope the environment of Douluo continent can recover in the future. Ening Fengzhai thought to himself. It was at this moment that the heavenly curtain began to play images. So Ning Fengzhai immediately set aside his worries and began to watch the heavenly curtain, chatting and laughing with Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo. Comparison of the 2 Douluos, now continuing broadcast. Subject of broadcast, Black World Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang. Noticing that his cultivation speed had slowed down, Yu Xiaogang searched through all the family records but couldn't find a solution. Therefore, he believed it was because there were too few books in the family. Thus, Yu Xiaogang wanted to go to a place with more books, namely the Spirit Hall, to search for information. He approached his father, Yu Yuanzhen. "You want to go to Spirit City?" Yu Yuanzhen frowned, looking at his son with some displeasure. "You're already like this, and yet you haven't embarrassed yourself enough. You want to run off to Spirit City to lose face." Yu Yuanzhen spoke in a low voice, clearly disapproving of Yu Xiaogang's idea of going to Spirit City. For no other reason than he truly didn't want to lose face anymore. Years ago, when Yu Xiaogang first released his first spirit skill, he had completely humiliated himself in front of the family elders. For a long time after that, he didn't dare to see the elders because he was afraid of seeing pity for himself in their eyes. Now that the matter had finally faded, Yu Xiaogang had come out saying he wanted to go to Spirit City. What, losing face in the family isn't enough to satisfy you? You want to throw your face across the entire Douluo continent. "I don't care, I'm going." The 20-something-year-old Yu Xiaogang put on a stubborn expression. From that posture, it seemed that if Yu Yuanzhen didn't agree, he would run away from home. Go, 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 my foot, get out of here." Yu Xiaogang's stubborn attitude instantly ignited a fire in Yu Yuanzhen's heart. He waved his hand to drive Yu Xiaogang away. Seeing the resentful look in Yu Xiaogang's eyes before he left, he leaned back in his chair and spent a long time catching his breath before finally calming down. "I really do owe you." After a long silence, Yu Yuanzhen slammed his fist on the table, but soon he pulled out a piece of paper, picked up a pen, and began to write on it. After finishing, Yu Yuanzhen folded the paper and stuffed it into an envelope. "Someone come here." Soon, a person appeared before Yu Yuanzhen. Deliver this letter to the hands of the Spirit Hall Pope, Qian Zunji. Remember to tell him that if he agrees to this matter, I Yu Xiaogang will be extremely grateful to him. Consider it that I owe him a favor. After Yu Xiaogang finished speaking, he handed the letter to that person. After the person left, Yu Xiaogang let out a long sigh. Xiaogang, don't let your father lose face anymore. I'm truly begging you. Chapter 81, Yu Xiaogang's first entry into Spirit City. Black World, Shrek Academy. Yu Xiaogang stared blankly at the heavenly curtain, watching his father write a letter, then have it delivered to the Spirit Hall's Supreme Pontiff, Qian Zunji, while promising to owe the other party a favor. Without even thinking, Yu Xiaogang could understand the contents of his father's letter. It was nothing more than asking Spirit Hall to open a back door for him, not to make things difficult for him, and to let him achieve his goals. But why did he never know about this? He had always thought that when he wanted to go to Spirit Hall back then, his father had refused him, and everything that followed was the result of his own hard work. But now the heavenly curtain was telling him that his father hadn't actually done nothing. He had even offered a personal favor to get Spirit Hall to help him. This was a favor from a titled Douluo and the sect master of one of the upper 3 sects. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Yu Xiaogang muttered to himself. He didn't believe it, nor was he willing to believe it. Being told today that his father had written to Spirit Hall back then, wasn't that a denial of everything he had done in Spirit City? That his ability to browse Spirit Hall's collection was not due to his own capabilities, but his father's help. What kind of joke was this? The film continues. Walking out of Yu Xiaogang's study, Yu Xiaogang's heart was filled with resentment toward his father. He resented his father for not giving him a good talent, and for not helping him obtain his second soul ring. Now, a new resentment was added, his father's unwillingness to help him go to Spirit City to study. Under the accumulation of such resentment, Yu Xiaogang locked himself in his room for several days, before finally making up his mind. If you're not willing to support me, then I'll go myself. Once I reach Spirit City, I can use the knowledge I learned in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect to exchange for the knowledge at Spirit Hall. Once I have the knowledge from both sides, I will master everything from ancient to modern times, achieve a heaven-defying change of fate, and see who still dares to look down on me. When I grow up and truly prove myself, anyone who wants my help will have to beg me. With such thoughts, Yu Xiaogang packed his bags late one night and left the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. However, while Yu Xiaogang thought his movements were hidden, he was discovered immediately. Sai, standing by the window, watching Yu Xiaogang's hurrying figure as he left, Yu Xiaogang sighed again. After leaving the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, Yu Xiaogang casually rented a carriage on the street. When he left home, he had filled his storage soul tool with things he would need for the journey, especially money. Accustomed to a life of comfort, Yu Xiaogang was unwilling to suffer any hardship. Thus, after a long journey, Yu Xiaogang arrived at the heart of Spirit Hall, Spirit City. Is this Spirit City? What a magnificent sight! Coming to Spirit City for the first time, Yu Xiaogang was shocked by its grandeur, feeling in his heart that it truly lived up to its name as the holy land of the world's spirit masters. Upon entering Spirit City, Yu Xiaogang found a suitable place to stay, and then impatiently wanted to enter Spirit Hall's library to browse the collection. With directions from the residents of Spirit City, Yu Xiaogang found a library. This was Spirit City's public library, where any spirit master could freely read the books inside. Yu Xiaogang showed his identification to the guard and entered the library. Meanwhile, in the Supreme Pontiff Palace of Spirit Hall, the current Pope, Qian Zunji, who was handling official business, also received news of Yu Xiaogang's arrival in Spirit City. It's much later than I expected. But speaking of which, that old dragon Yu Xiaogang really cares about his son. Even though he's already such a waste, he's still willing to use a favor to let that guy study in our Spirit Hall's library to find a way to change. An ordinary person would have probably given up on this son long ago. Leaning back in his chair, with blonde hair and a gaze that remained quite majestic, even in moments of calm, Qian Zunji said with a smile. Sigh, that old dragon is just too soft-hearted and cares too much about his son. Sitting below, Dragon Scale Douluo sighed, feeling pity for his old brother. On this Douluo continent, which titled Douluo isn't infinitely glorious. But when it came to Yu Xiaogang, over the years, he himself had heard plenty of jokes about him, let alone Yu Xiaogang himself. HMPH, he's only soft-hearted toward his own people. Look at his past style, he was incredibly aggressive. Qian Zunji chuckled. True, who would have thought that the guy who was so hot-tempered he was called a humanoid tyrant dragon, when he and I roamed the continent together, would turn out like this? Dragon Scale Douluo was silent for a moment before finally speaking. Then, Your Holiness, regarding the opening of Spirit Hall's library, to what extent should we grant him access? The person reporting below inquired. Open it up to rank 3. After a moment's thought, Qian Zunji said. Spirit Hall's collection is divided into 5 ranks according to their preciousness. Among them, rank 5 books are the secret teachings of Spirit Hall. Even titled Douluos who join Spirit Hall are not all qualified to browse them. Rank 4 books are equally precious and can only be viewed by those who truly become core members of Spirit Hall. As for rank 3, although the degree of rarity drops significantly, it still contains many secrets at the level of Spirit Saints, Spirit Douluos, and even titled Douluos. In Qian Zunji's view, allowing Yu Xiaogang to browse rank 3 books at will was already giving Yu Xiaogang a lot of face. As for higher rank books, even if they were willing to let Yu Xiaogang see them, with his talent, he wouldn't understand them, and even if he did, he wouldn't be able to use them. Understood. The subordinate took the order and was about to leave when Qian Zunji spoke again. By the way, don't take the initiative to contact him, and don't tell him we've permitted him to view the collection. We must let him take the initiative to beg us. In the process, we can also pry some things about the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect out of him. A sharp light flashed in Qian Zunji's eyes. A single favor from Yu Xiaogang could not satisfy his appetite. The fact that Yu Xiaogang came to Spirit City to read books proved that he had already finished reading his own family's records and couldn't find a solution, which is why he came to Spirit City. In that case, he could use this opportunity to extract part of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's data from Yu Xiaogang. Although Qian Zunji estimated that most of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's data was related to thunder attribute spirits, he didn't mind, as the holy land for spirit masters on the Douluo continent, Spirit Hall would never feel they had too many things. I hope that kid can give me some surprises, Qian Zunji said with a smile. Looking at Qian Zunji, Dragon Scale Douluo couldn't help but shake his head. Poor old dragon, being targeted by His Holiness the Pope, your son is likely going to be picked clean. Chapter 82 Tang San. As expected of my teacher, he shares similar thoughts with me. Unaware that Qian Zunji had his eye on him, Yu Xiaogang was searching for information in the public library of Spirit City. At first, Yu Xiaogang held great expectations for this information, but before long, he discovered that the materials in the public library were all very basic. Their level of detail was far inferior to the information he had seen in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Regarding this, Yu Xiaogang was very disappointed. The Grand Spirit City, the holy land of spirit masters on the Douluo continent, actually possessed information inferior to his own sect. Unwilling to accept this, Yu Xiaogang began to inquire everywhere, and subsequently learned that Spirit Hall possessed a database exclusive to internal personnel. To view those materials, one had to join Spirit Hall. Furthermore, the higher the level of the information, the higher the status required to view it. Upon receiving this information, Yu Xiaogang was ecstatic. I knew it, Spirit Hall's collection of books certainly couldn't be that small. But following that was the question of how he should browse those materials. Joining Spirit Hall was definitely out of the question. Not only was he unwilling to join, but even if he were, how could Spirit Hall possibly trust him? As the son of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's sect master, who would believe he was willing to abandon his status as a disciple of the upper 3 sects to join Spirit Hall and become an ordinary spirit master. Just as Yu Xiaogang was at his wit's end, he accidentally obtained some information. Access to Spirit Hall's book collection could be exchanged for corresponding contributions. For example, if you contributed a spirit bone, then even if you were a commoner, you could enter the library to raid. In addition, regarding research on spirits or any discovered secrets, as long as you were willing to contribute them to Spirit Hall and your contribution had value, Spirit Hall's library would be open to you. Hearing this information, Yu Xiaogang almost rushed forward immediately to say he wanted to enter the library to raid. However, to prevent the information he heard from being false, Yu Xiaogang observed for a few days and investigated the situation in detail. After confirming that Spirit Hall truly had such a policy, he immediately returned to his residence and wrote down some of the knowledge he had seen within his sect. The next day, carrying this knowledge, Yu Xiaogang found the person in charge of such matters and handed over the content he had written. It's somewhat useful. It can be exchanged for a certain amount of viewing time for level 1 books. Having received this answer, Yu Xiaogang finally entered Spirit Hall's library. Entering the library, Yu Xiaogang began to search for the books he needed among the collection. During this time, he actually found some things that, in his view, were very insightful. For example, research on the inheritance of spirit bloodlines. This material recorded the correlation between the awakening of a young spirit master's spirit and their parents. At the end of the material, there was also a detailed account recorded by the author through many real cases. Another example was research on the correlation between innate soul power and the quality of a spirit. According to the records, the higher a spirit master's innate soul power, the higher the quality of their spirit. For spirit masters from large families, as long as they awaken their family's ancestral spirit, their innate soul power generally won't be too low. Of course, martial soul mutation is an exception. Then there were some research materials regarding martial soul mutation. To Yu Xiaogang, these materials were like priceless treasures. In his view, while these materials might not help his cultivation, they would facilitate a deep understanding of spirits and spirit masters. To truly understand the system of spirits, one had to start from these most basic materials. Looking at these collected materials, a thought suddenly arose in Yu Xiaogang's heart that he should also publish a work. The moment this thought occurred, Yu Xiaogang thought of Spirit Hall's rules. One must join Spirit Hall or make a contribution to Spirit Hall to view and learn this knowledge. What a narrow-minded idea. Shouldn't theories be spread to everyone? Only then could they truly honor those who went through immense hardships to research and develop them. At this moment, Yu Xiaogang felt a deep sense of sorrow for the people of the Douluo continent. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. Possessing so much information, yet Spirit Hall hoards it like a treasure, unwilling to share even a bit with the people. If it were me, I would certainly not keep my work to myself. I would make it public to the entire Douluo continent. A light flashed in Yu Xiaogang's eyes. He believed that by doing this, even if he set aside his cultivation level in the future, he would surely become the most famous figure on the Douluo continent. Black World Shrek Academy. Tusk, Grandmaster, I really didn't expect that just to view Spirit Hall's materials, you would directly sell out your own family. You really didn't hesitate for even a second. Ening Rongrong had a look of surprise on her face. She never expected that Yu Xiaogang could actually do such a thing. Even she, when faced with such a matter, would have to properly ask for the opinion of her father, the sect master. Directly selling out the interests of the sect. Ening Rongrong was certain that if she dared to do such a thing, it wouldn't be long before her father broke her legs. Not even if Grandpa Sword and Grandpa Bone tried to stop him together. Third brother, the theories appearing on the heavenly curtain, seemed so similar to the Grandmaster's theories. On the other side, Zyro Wu came to Tang San's side, tugged at the hem of the dazed Tang San's clothes, and whispered, "I can see that." Tang San came back to his senses upon hearing Zyro Wu's words, and finally spoke with a calm expression. The heavenly curtain showed his teacher seeing research on the inheritance of spirit bloodlines inside Spirit Hall's library. It also showed research on the influence of innate soul power on the quality of spirits. As for his teacher's most famous theory, the 10 core competencies of martial souls, the content of several points couldn't just be called similar to these, they were identical. Tang San was indeed shocked at first that his teacher's research content was similar to Spirit Hall's information. But on second thought, if it weren't for his teacher, these research contents would only stay in the dark library of Spirit Hall, never seeing the light of day. From this perspective, his teacher was doing a good deed. Just like himself in his previous life, the Tang sect's mind cultivation techniques and hidden weapons manufacturing methods were shelved by the Tang sect. No one could learn them, and no one could manufacture them. But he was able to do it. This was his own ability. Therefore, learning that Yu Xiaogang's theories actually referenced Spirit Hall's theories, Tang San didn't feel it was bad. Instead, he approved of Yu Xiaogang even more. It was also fortunate that Zyro Wu and the others didn't know Tang San's inner thoughts at this moment. Otherwise, they would likely be greatly shocked. And then they would lament that they truly were master and disciple, birds of a feather indeed. Chapter 83, The Meeting of Yu Xiaogang and Bibai Dong. The video continues. Entering the library of the Spirit Hall, Yu Xiaogang was like a mouse entering a rice vat, beginning to swim in the ocean of knowledge. During this period, the person responsible for keeping an eye on Yu Xiaogang interrupted him several times as he read in a trance, reminding him that his contribution points were no longer sufficient and that he needed to increase them to continue reading. In response, Yu Xiaogang still unhesitatingly wrote down the knowledge of his sect and handed it over to the people of the Spirit Hall. Every time they easily obtained information about the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect from Yu Xiaogang's hands, the people of the Spirit Hall felt quite emotional. He truly was a profligate son, selling his father's fields without a hint of heartache. Fortunately, they were members of the Spirit Hall. If they were from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, they would probably be driven to collapse from anger. After sacrificing a large amount of his sect's knowledge, Yu Xiaogang searched through all the books in the Spirit Hall below level 3, but the results he obtained were not satisfactory. Fortunately, he heard that the Spirit Hall also possessed level 4 and level 5 collections. So once again, he brought the information he had written down, wanting to view the higher level collections of the Spirit Hall. Unfortunately, this time, he did not receive permission. Insufficient contribution. Yu Xiaogang's eyes widened as he stared at the person in front of him. Of course it's not enough. You should know that level 4 books can only be viewed by core members of the Spirit Hall. As for level 5 books, even some titled Douluo are not qualified to view them. With just these things you've contributed so far, you want to see the true treasures of our Spirit Hall. Hee hee. The Spirit Hall member gave a contemptuous smile and said no more. However, this smile seemed to touch a nerve in Yu Xiaogang, making him subconsciously clench his fists. Finally, after a long silence, Yu Xiaogang took a deep look at the library behind the Spirit Hall member and then left in a hurry. Lacking the qualification to browse those more precious materials, Yu Xiaogang began to digest the information he had seen previously. During this time, he actually found some useful things that made his cultivation speed slightly faster. Although it was only a little, it almost made him jump for joy. This success made Yu Xiaogang certain that researching theory was the path he should take. Consequently, his desire for those level 4 and level 5 books in the Spirit Hall grew even stronger. But under normal circumstances, he wouldn't be able to see those books. Was there any way for him to see those books? Yu Xiaogang was walking through Spirit City when suddenly, a figure passed by him. A youthful and graceful body, purple hair, and a perfect countenance. With just one glance, Yu Xiaogang was captivated by this figure. He didn't snap out of it until the other party had already left. He naturally knew the other person's identity. Bibi Dong, the holy maiden of the Spirit Hall, and the disciple of the Spirit Hall's Supreme Pontiff, Qian Zunji. A super genius with full innate soul power and twin spirits. As long as no accidents occurred, her figure would surely be at the very peak of the Douluo continent in the future. Since arriving in Spirit City, Yu Xiaogang had heard plenty of news about this holy maiden of the Spirit Hall. Rumors said she was kind-hearted, innocent, and lively. There were also rumors that she liked to wander through the market streets and listen to interesting stories. Still more rumors claimed she loved combat, relished torturing and killing her opponents, and had a cruel personality. Regardless of the rumors, they all told everyone one thing: Bibai Dong was not on the same level as ordinary people. At the height where she stood, people like them were only fit to look up to her. Of course, Yu Xiaogang did not feel that he and Bibai Dong were on different levels, nor did he feel that he was only fit to look up to her in the future. He was the son of a titled Douluo, a figure destined to become famous across the continent. A person like him would not lose to Bibai Dong in the slightest. With this thought in mind, Yu Xiaogang suddenly realized that perhaps he could make use of Bibai Dong. As the disciple of the Spirit Hall's Supreme Pontiff, Bibai Dong was bound to be a core figure of the Spirit Hall, and she could surely browse the level 4 books at will. And as for those level 5 books that even titled Douluo might not be able to browse, there was a high probability she could see them too. Ultimately, for a super genius with full innate soul power plus twin spirits, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call her a future titled Douluo. Especially since Bibai Dong had been nurtured by the Spirit Hall since childhood. Such a person was truly the most core of members. With the idea formed, Yu Xiaogang began to pay close attention to this holy maiden of the Spirit Hall for the next period of time. Through various means, he learned about Bibai Dong's preferences, the things she liked to do and the things she hated. It could be said that to achieve his goal, Yu Xiaogang had truly made thorough preparations. Then, on a certain morning, Yu Xiaogang arrived early outside a snack shop, fully prepared, and waited quietly for Bibai Dong's arrival. Sure enough, before long, Bibai Dong arrived outside the shop, waiting for it to open. During this time, Yu Xiaogang stepped forward and accidentally bumped into Bibai Dong, causing the documents in his hands to fall all over the ground. Out of apology, Bibai Dong began to help Yu Xiaogang organize the documents. While helping, Bibai Dong glanced at the content of the materials, and the two of them chatted for a few moments. After tidying up the materials, Yu Xiaogang did not linger. He thanked Bibai Dong and then left. This encounter was originally nothing special, and Bibai Dong didn't take it to heart. But it couldn't be helped that before long, Bibai Dong saw Yu Xiaogang again. This time, the place where they met was the library. Yu Xiaogang coincidentally sat down across from Bibai Dong while she was reading. A few coughs startled the reading Bibai Dong, and thus, she naturally discovered Yu Xiaogang. Afterwards, at the Spirit Hall Academy, at the Great Spirit Arena, outside a certain shop in Spirit City. Meeting again and again made Bibai Dong curious about Yu Xiaogang. And Yu Xiaogang, who had planned this long ago, took the opportunity to show her things she liked according to her preferences. Back and forth, Bibai Dong and Yu Xiaogang became acquainted, and the topics they discussed began to increase. Sensing that the time was right, Yu Xiaogang began to tell Bibai Dong about his troubles. Things like having countless ideas in his mind, but being unable to execute them due to his poor talent. Or for instance, being the son of a titled Douluo and being highly expected, yet ultimately ending up like this. Hearing these words from Yu Xiaogang, Bibai Dong couldn't help but feel deep pity for him. Because she found points of empathy with herself in Yu Xiaogang. As the disciple of the Spirit Hall's Supreme Pontiff, Qian Zunji, the pressure in Bibai Dong's heart was also immense. She didn't want to fail her teacher, fail her high priest grandfather, or fail everyone's expectations of her. Therefore, she could only cultivate hard and use her strength to prove herself. But she would also feel tired, empty, and lost. Yet whenever she felt this way, she didn't even have a single person to talk to about her grievances. Because no one could feel the same as she did. And now, she had finally met someone who shared a common topic and could understand how she felt. Chapter 84 Yu Xiaogang. After this, can you still say you're not a love brain? Bibi Dong found common ground with Yu Xiaogang. So after a few exchanges, Bibai Dong told Yu Xiaogang about her troubles. Hearing that Bibai Dong was willing to show her emotions to him, Yu Xiaogang was immediately ecstatic. Because this meant he and Bibai Dong had become good friends, and his plan to use her to access the library was proceeding smoothly. Thus, Yu Xiaogang began to expand on many topics based on this subject. Yu Xiaogang, perhaps his talent was lacking, perhaps he often thought himself clever, but one thing could not be denied. That was, he had read enough books. Although he might not have fully digested the contents of those books, his vast reading experience allowed him to speak smooth, flowery words. Under his encouragement, the pressure in Bibaidong's heart was greatly reduced. At the same time, Yu Xiaogang also explained some of the theories he had studied and researched to Bibaidong. It had to be said, Bibaidong was an excellent listener. In front of her, Yu Xiaogang could always find satisfaction. If nothing else, just Bibaidong's expression of earnest listening while he explained his theories made Yu Xiaogang incredibly satisfied. In the past, when he promoted his theories before his family, whether it was the ordinary spirit masters, the elders, or even Yu Xiaogang's father, their expressions were full of disdain. Now that he had finally met someone willing to listen and provide good feedback, he naturally told her everything he could. And this process continued for a long time. During this time, while spending time with Yu Xiaogang, Bibaidong unconsciously developed a favorable impression of him. Eventually, it turned into love. Yu Xiaogang also noticed Bibaidong's change, a super genius, and such a beautiful one at that. Falling in love with him was something that infinitely satisfied his vanity. Therefore, he responded to Bibaidong without hesitation. Back and forth, the two fell into a passionate love. White World, Spirit Hall. They fell in love just like that. Huliena stared dumbfoundedly at the screen showing Bibaidong and Yu Xiaogang of the parallel world officially falling in love, unable to speak for a long time. Because ever since becoming Bibaidong's student, Huliena had asked her teacher how she had actually ended up with Dragon God His Eminence back then. Through Bibaidong's narration, Huliena had heard a love story that succeeded only after going through numerous hardships and trials. Thus, in her heart, love was not something easily achieved. But what was the situation with the heavenly curtain now? They fell in love just by chatting. Teacher over there, you are the holy maiden of the spirit hall. Just because of some shallow theories from that Yu Xiaogang, you fell for him. Are you really not blind? Huliena couldn't understand, so she could only look at the two involved parties beside her. However, at this moment, the two involved parties were also dumbfounded. So I said, you definitely have a love brain. Look, they fell in love just like that. Yu Xiaogang glanced at Bibaidong and spoke, while suppressing his laughter. I. Bibaidong wanted to argue, but the heavenly curtain had already shown it clearly. She wanted to argue but didn't know what to say. Finally, Bibaidong just gave up and let it be. So what if I have a love brain? I'm sticking with you for the rest of my life, even if you don't want to. Besides, I only have a love brain for you. With such a wonderful person like me loving you, aren't you satisfied? Bibaidong stood with her hands on her hips, glaring at Yu Xiaogang. Satisfied, of course I am. I've always said you have a love brain, but I've never despised it. Yu Xiaogang pulled Bibaidong into his arms and comforted her. The sour stench of love wafted around the two, making Huliena, who was sitting not far away, frown. She stood up and went over to Cayenne Douluo and the others. High Priest, how many years has it been for them? How can they not be tired of being so lovey-dovey? Huliena curled her lip and said, HMPH, who knows? Cayenne Douluo snorted and shrugged helplessly. Speaking of which, what kind of ending will the Bibaidong and Yu Xiaogang in the parallel world have? It shouldn't be the same as our world, right? God Douluo, who had been watching the heavenly curtain seriously, suddenly spoke. That's certain, although the worlds are different, the only difference is Xiaogang, everything else is about the same. With Zunji's personality, it's impossible for him to agree to Bibaidong being with a piece of trash. Especially since this trash isn't even from our own camp. Cayenne Douluo said. Not to mention Cayenne Zunji, if it were himself or the leader of any other power, they wouldn't allow such a thing to happen either. The video continues. Bibaidong and Yu Xiaogang's feelings deepened as their passionate love continued. Afterward, Yu Xiaogang suggested that he wanted to use her to view higher-level books in the Spirit Hall's collection. Bibaidong agreed to this without any hesitation. Through this, Yu Xiaogang truly saw the core internal materials of the Spirit Hall. While viewing these materials, Yu Xiaogang flirted and shared romantic moments with Bibai Dong. After some time like this, Bibai Dong's abnormality was finally noticed by others. Bang! What did you say? A loud bang echoed in the office. Pope Qian Zunji looked at the person reporting the news with a distorted face. Dragon Scale Douluo and Iron Wall Douluo on the side were also staring at the person in shock. It's just, the Holy Maiden has been getting too close to that Yu Xiaogang lately. If we're not mistaken, they should be. They seem to have developed feelings for each other. The subordinate reporting the information stammered. He was truly afraid that the Pope would end his life in a fit of rage. Useless trash, I told you to watch him, and this is how you watch. The Holy Maiden of our spirit hall has been abducted by someone. Qian Zunji was furious. A burst of golden light shot from his hand, striking the man. The person hit flew backward out of the Supreme Pontiff Palace and fell to the ground, unconscious. However, a split second before losing consciousness, he felt fortunate. He hadn't died this time, so it seemed he wouldn't have to die in the future. Pope, do you need me to drive that fellow away? Iron Wall Douluo stepped forward and asked. Dragon Scale Douluo didn't speak. He was currently shocked by Yu Xiaogang's boldness. As the son of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect Master, with such poor talent, his father had paid the price of a favor to finally secure him an opportunity to study in Spirit City. It's one thing not to study hard, but you actually dare to fall in love with our Holy Maiden. Setting everything else aside, you completely lack self-awareness. Is the Holy Maiden of our spirit hall someone, a piece of trash like you can covet? Chapter 85, Qian Zunji, I can't figure out why Bibai Dong would like him. An infuriated Qian Zunji sat back in his chair, thinking with a gloomy expression. Having received no answer, Iron Wall Douluo and Dragon Scale Douluo glanced at each other. Neither said anything, simply waiting for Qian Zunji's orders. What exactly does that Yu Xiaogang have that attracts Donga? After a long silence, Qian Zunji finally asked the question he could never wrap his head around. Through the records, Qian Zunji could clearly see exactly what kind of person Yu Xiaogang was. His talent was abysmal, having completely humiliated Yu Yuanzhen. If it were just that, it would be fine. After all, the outcome of a martial soul awakening is unpredictable. But Yu Xiaogang later tried to be clever, completely ignoring the advice of a titled Douluo like Yu Yuanzhen. He stubbornly insisted on going out for soul hunting on his own. Although his spirit ability remains unknown, the fact that he has never used it in front of others makes it clear. It's definitely not a good one. For someone like this, Qian Zunji would only give him 2 words, serves him right. Originally, Qian Zunji hadn't even given Yu Xiaogang a second thought. After all, there were so many things on the Douluo continent requiring his attention every day. Why would he waste energy on a piece of trash destined to never grow? But who could have imagined that Yu Xiaogang would actually pull off something big? He had actually started a romantic relationship with his own genius disciple. As his disciple, Bibai Dong had essentially been raised and pampered by everyone in Spirit Hall over the years. His father and those uncles, every single one of them, adored the child Bibai Dong. Not only because of Bibai Dong's startling natural talent, but also because her personality was indeed very likable. Logically, having grown up under the affection of a group of titled Douluo, Bibai Dong's standards should have been very high. Back when Bibai Dong was still studying at the Spirit Hall Academy, although she was conversational, there were very few people she could actually talk to. Even the teammates she once participated in spirit fighting with ended up remaining just teammates. They never even became friends. Because of this, when Bibai Dong was at the Spirit Hall Academy, she was described as being like a blue flame cat. This is a type of spirit beast that is covered in burning blue flames, yet the blue flame cat is an ice attribute spirit beast. Its flames contain a bone-chilling cold. This corresponded to Bibai Dong's personality, appearing cheerful and warm on the surface, but possessing an icy demeanor that no one could ever truly penetrate. This was also why Qian Zunji felt very at ease regarding Bibai Dong. He didn't think an ordinary person could catch Bibai Dong's attention. But today he had miscalculated. Of course, what truly baffled Kyan Zunji was, why Yu Xiaogang? If it was some genius, it would be one thing, but a piece of trash. What exactly did he have that could attract his disciple? Below, Iron Wall Douluo and Dragon Scale Douluo were also choked up upon hearing Kyan Zunji's question. Indeed, why would it be Yu Xiaogang? Unable to figure out the reason, Kyan Zunji decided to put a stop to this romance. Setting aside the fact that Yu Xiaogang himself was trash, just look at his background. As Yu Yuanzhen's son, his desire to marry Bibai Dong was nothing but a pipe dream. Someone come, summon the holy maiden back. Following Kyan Zunji's command, it wasn't long before Bibai Dong, who was off somewhere in Spirit City being affectionate with Yu Xiaogang, received the message. Unaware that a secret was out, Bibai Dong bid farewell to Yu Xiaogang and returned to Spirit Hall. "Teacher, did you send for me?" With a smile on her face, Bibai Dong arrived at the solemn and majestic Supreme Pontiff Palace. At this moment, everyone in the Supreme Pontiff Palace looked extremely serious. "Donga, let me ask you, are you in a relationship with that man named Yu Xiaogang?" Kyan Zunji looked directly down at Bibai Dong, slightly releasing the pressure of a titled Douluo from his body. "Teacher, answer my question." Bibi Dong hesitated on whether to speak, but in the next second, Kyan Zunji let out an angry roar. Having never seen her teacher like this before, Bibai Dong felt a bit wronged, but she still nodded. "Yes. SSS, so why, he's a piece of trash. What exactly does he have that attracts you?" Seeing Bibai Dong's expression, Kyan Zunji took a deep breath to calm his emotions, trying his best to make his voice sound gentle. "Xiaogang is very good. His knowledge is profound, his theories are incredible, and his insights far exceed those of ordinary people." Bibi Dong quickly listed Yu Xiaogang's various strengths. She knew very well that her teacher cared for her deeply, and the reason his tone was so serious now was because of Xiaogang's poor talent. But she didn't care. She simply liked Yu Xiaogang as a person. "Is that all?" Kyan Zunji stared at Bibai Dong. He couldn't understand. Could a person like that really attract Bibai Dong? If so, Bibai Dong should have met someone she liked long ago. After all, while there were few people in the Spirit Hall Academy who specialized in theoretical research, they did exist. "Teacher, I know you think Xiaogang's talent is poor, but I want to say that talent isn't set in stone. With Xiaogang's mind, he will surely find a way to change it in the future. I believe in him." Bibi Dong looked at Kyan Zunji with a determined gaze. For the first time, she was so resolute in front of her teacher. "You." Looking at Bibai Dong's appearance, Kyan Zunji was momentarily at a loss for words. His own disciple was this resolute before him for the first time, and it was actually for a piece of trash. Forget it, go back for now, think this matter over carefully. In the end, Kyan Zunji couldn't bring himself to say anything harsh. "Teacher, I've already made up my mind about Xiaogang. No matter how much I think about it, it will be the same." Before leaving, Bibai Dong left behind those words. After Bibai Dong left, the office fell into silence. Dragon Scale Douluo and Iron Wall Douluo looked at each other, standing below in silence. "Zog!" With a roar of fury, Kyan Zunji swept everything off his desk. "Dragon Scale Iron Wall. Present. Go arrange some people for me. Whether it's sowing discord, threats, or whatever, find a way to make that trash get away from Donga. His Holiness the Pope, but on the Holy Maiden's side. Can't you just spend money to find someone? Hire a group of thugs to say they want to snatch her away from that trash, right in front of Donga." Kyan Zunji looked at the two below, his gaze sharp. Don't women all like that feeling of being protected? With that trash's ability, he thinks he can protect Donga. HMPH, when the time comes, make him look absolutely pathetic. I don't believe Donga can still like him after that. Chapter 86, Yu Xiaogang flees Spirit City in disgrace. Kyan Zunji issued an order, and the two titled Douluo, Dragon Scale and Iron Wall, carried it out personally. Soon, Bibai Dong and Yu Xiaogang encountered various troubles whenever they were together. For instance, several thugs would suddenly jump out to provoke Yu Xiaogang, attempting to snatch Bibai Dong away. There were also more direct approaches. where someone would come up and state plainly that they had taken a liking to Bibai Dong and wanted to duel Yu Xiaogang. In short, the wide variety of provocations left Bibai Dong endlessly annoyed. Bibi Dong was merely annoyed, but Yu Xiaogang's feelings were far more complex. Because those who wanted to take Bibai Dong away from him would invariably proclaim in front of them that beauties only belong to the strong. Although these people were usually driven away by the powerful Bibai Dong in the end. Before leaving, they would always leave behind a comment, "You're just a coward who only knows how to hide behind a woman." This sentence dealt a massive blow to Yu Xiaogang. Because this was precisely the biggest problem that always existed, but he was unwilling to mention or think about while being with Bibai Dong. Bibi Dong was the holy maiden of Spirit Hall, a super genius with full innate soul power and twin spirits. Before her, he had always been the weak one. As provocateur after provocateur came to their door, the sense of inferiority in Yu Xiaogang's heart continued to intensify. He accelerated his search through the library, hoping to find a method that could help him. But he flipped through one record after another, yet could never find the content he desired. It was at this time that Bibai Dong suddenly vanished. For over 10 consecutive days, Yu Xiaogang searched everywhere but could not find her anywhere. Could it be that she also finds me pathetic and is no longer willing to see me? Yu Xiaogang thought despondently. Just then, a member of Spirit Hall appeared before Yu Xiaogang. "The Pope requests your presence." Led by the Spirit Hall member, Yu Xiaogang arrived at the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Dressed in papal robes, holding a scepter, and wearing the papal crown, Qian Zunji stood expressionless on the high platform. Below the two Douluos, Dragon Scale and Iron Wall, stood on either side. Seeing this setup, Yu Xiaogang swallowed hard, his legs trembling slightly. "Please." The Spirit Hall member beside Yu Xiaogang glanced at him with disdain. With this kind of courage, he dared to covet their holy maiden. Overestimating himself. Under the urging of the Spirit Hall member, Yu Xiaogang walked with somewhat uncontrollable steps to the area below Qian Zunji. "So you are the Yu Xiaogang our Spirit Hall holy maiden speaks of." Qian Zunji's gaze narrowed, and a wave of pressure bore down on Yu Xiaogang. With the aura of a powerhouse pressing down on him, Yu Xiaogang fell to his knees almost instantly. His face turned red as he tried to stand up, but unfortunately he couldn't do it. To the side, Dragon Scale Douluo frowned. He almost couldn't bear to keep watching. As Yu Yuanzhen's good brother, he originally should have looked after his friend's son. But given what Yu Xiaogang was displaying, he truly had no desire to help him. "Answer my question, are you Yu Xiaogang?" Qian Zunji's voice suddenly grew heavier, and the pressure on Yu Xiaogang rose again. "Yes, it's me." Yu Xiaogang spoke timidly. "HMPH, quite the Yu Xiaogang indeed. You come from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, and are the son of Thunder Douluo Yu Yuanzhen. A person like you comes to my spirit city, and instead of keeping a low profile, dares to use our Spirit Hall's holy maiden to steal our knowledge. What should your punishment be?" Thud. As the words fell, the scepter in Qian Zunji's hand struck the ground heavily. Pressed by Qian Zunji's spirit power and simultaneously interrogated with words, Yu Xiaogang didn't know how to answer. Under Qian Zunji's pressure, he felt that he might actually die here today. Driven by the instinct for survival, he began to defend himself. I am the son of a titled Douluo, you can't kill me. I didn't steal your books, those books. Those books were all given to me by Bibai Dong. She felt that my knowledge was exceptional, so she gave those books to me to raid. Yu Xiaogang said, trembling. HMPH, she gives them to you and you just read them. She is the holy maiden of my Spirit Hall. What about you? What is your status? Qian Zunji said angrily. Yu Xiaogang remained silent, but his body continued to shake. Besides that, I have heard from my subordinates that you harbor some inappropriate thoughts toward our holy maiden. I wonder if this is true or false. Qian Zunji said with a fake smile. Hearing the coldness in Qian Zunji's voice, Yu Xiaogang understood that if he dared to say it was true, the other party might actually strike him down, even if his father was a titled Douluo. Furthermore, Yu Xiaogang had no idea how Qian Zunji would treat him. He might have someone beat him up, or he might just take his life directly. Thus, a choice was placed before Yu Xiaogang. Should he risk being beaten to death to follow his heart and admit his love for Bibaidong? Or should he give a negative answer to save himself? The image of Bibaidong's brightly smiling face flashed through Yu Xiaogang's mind. Immediately following that were the faces of those who had once mocked him, insulted him, and made him suffer humiliation. No, I absolutely cannot die. I haven't proven myself yet. I haven't made those who mocked me regret it. I haven't made my father regret his past indifference toward me, nor have I made the sect elders regret their actions. Since I haven't achieved any of this, how can I die here? Consequently, Bibaidong's smiling face gradually faded from his mind. In the end, Yu Xiaogang grit his teeth. Reporting to His Holiness the Pope, those are just rumors. The Holy Maiden and I merely had some simple exchanges regarding spirit theories. Ha ha ha, good, it's good that they are just rumors. Hearing Yu Xiaogang's answer, Qian Zunji laughed loudly. Although Yu Xiaogang displeased him at this moment, he felt the man was at least sensible. Dragon Scale Douluo closed his eyes, no longer bothering to look at Yu Xiaogang. He truly felt it wasn't worth it for his old friend. However, even if they are rumors, they still affect the reputation of our spirit hall's Holy Maiden. Furthermore, you have already read so many of our spirit hall's secret archives. According to spirit hall's rules, such a crime requires the destruction of one's cultivation as punishment. Hearing Qian Zunji's words, Yu Xiaogang almost collapsed. No, please don't. Your Holiness the Pope, you can't do this. I beg of you, please don't do this. Seeing Yu Xiaogang pleading with him, a clear look of disgust flashed in Qian Zunji's eyes. But for the sake of your father Yu Yuanzhen's face, I will let you go this time. Before the sun sets today, I do not want to hear any news of you still being in Spirit City. If I find out you haven't left, Yu Yuanzhen's face might have saved you this time, but it won't work next time. As Qian Zunji finished speaking, he immediately withdrew his spirit power. Yu Xiaogang sat blankly for a moment, and when he tried to stand up, he found that his legs had no strength at all. Glancing at Yu Xiaogang with disgust once more, Qian Zunji summoned guards to drag him out of the Supreme Pontiff Palace and throw him onto the busy street. Being thrown out by the guards caused passers-by to stop and watch. Being stared at, Yu Xiaogang wished he could find a hole to crawl into. He wanted to flee, but because his legs were weak, he couldn't get up for a long time. Finally, when he eventually recovered, Yu Xiaogang didn't even go back to his lodgings to pack his things. He just left Spirit City like that. His wretched appearance was just like that of a stray dog. Chapter 87, Bibaidong protesting with a hunger strike. Black World Spirit Hall. Xiaogang. Looking at Yu Xiaogang's wretched state in the heavenly curtain, Bibaidong's face was covered in tears. While weeping at the thought of Qian Zunji, the man she had long since killed, endless hatred still welled up in her heart. This hatred drove her spirit power to spread outward. On the other side, Qian Douluo of the Elder Hall felt Bibaidong's spirit power and the sky-shaking resentment she emitted. Big brother, should we do something? Gold Crocodile Douluo came behind Qian Zunji and asked. As for Bibaidong, Gold Crocodile Douluo had once truly doted on her for a period of time. At that time, Bibaidong was indeed the apple of their eyes. But as she fell in love with Yu Xiaogang, no matter how they tried to persuade her, breaking down the reasoning and explaining it thoroughly, she never changed her mind. From then on, the worshippers were all disappointed in Bibaidong. That being said, the worshippers never expected that Qian Zunji would actually do such a thing back then. As a gentleman who lived his life with integrity, Qian Douluo once wanted to personally kill that beast after learning of his son's actions. But he was stopped by the worshippers. Later, Qian Zunji was heavily injured and killed by Bibaidong. Even though Qian Douluo wept for the loss of his son, he couldn't do anything to Bibaidong. Because it was his son's mistake. Later, out of guilt, when Bibaidong proposed to become the Pope, he chose to agree. Honestly, it was because Qian Dailiu had already become a rank 99, titled Douluo early on. If these things had happened before his strength reached its peak, he estimated that his cultivation might never have increased again. Psi letter B, it is our Qian family that has wronged her. Qian Dailiu looked up at Qian Zunji's face in the heavenly curtain, feeling both nostalgic and angry. Shrek Academy. Yu Xiaogang clenched his fists as he watched his wretched appearance leaving Spirit City in the heavenly curtain. This was one of the most humiliating moments of his life, and a nightmare he could never escape. Seeing Yu Xiaogang's appearance, no one stood up to mock him this time. Although Yu Xiaogang's initial purpose for approaching Bibaidong was not pure, since the two could fall in love, it was the choice of both parties. At most, they would comment that Yu Xiaogang was a toad wishing to eat swan meat. But the key was, the swan was willing to let him eat. This was very frustrating. They really wanted to go to the Spirit Hall now, to interview His Holiness the Pope. What exactly about Yu Xiaogang attracted your attention and made you fall in love with him? Surely the current His Holiness the Pope doesn't just like this type of person with poor talent and a high self-opinion. The video continues. After driving away Yu Xiaogang, Qian Zunji arrived outside the door of a certain room in the Spirit Hall. Knock, knock, knock. A soft knocking sound rang out, followed by a voice that was weak to the extreme. Teacher, is that you? Let me out, I want to find Xiaogang. The voice belonged to Bibaidong, but her voice was weaker than ever before, as if she had been hungry for a long time. HMPH Xiaogang, it's Xiaogang all day long. Bibaidong, wake up, you are the holy maiden of my Spirit Hall, someone who will become a titled Douluo in the future. But look at what you're doing now. Acting like your life depends on a piece of trash, and even coming up with a method like a hunger strike. Qian Zunji's face was flushed red, clearly from anger. Not long ago, after the two Douluos, Dragon Scale and Iron Wall, had tried everything but still failed to break the two apart, Qian Zunji finally couldn't take it anymore. He called Bibaidong before him and told her bluntly that he could never agree to their relationship. Teacher, do you really want to tear us apart? Xiaogang and I are truly in love. Looking at Bibaidong's tear-streaked face, Qian Zunji did not soften his heart this time. His gaze was sharp. I don't care if you're truly in love or falsely in love. In any case, I'm telling you one thing, it's forever impossible between you. Donga, you must understand that your future has infinite possibilities, but that guy is just a piece of trash. How could a piece of trash like him be worthy of you? Qian Zunji's words made Bibaidong's stubbornness flare up. She actually wiped her tears and prepared to leave directly. Dragon Scale Iron Wall. Qian Zunji's angry voice rang out in the hall, and the two Douluos, Dragon Scale and Iron Wall, blocked Bibaidong's path. Uncle Dragon Scale, Uncle Iron Wall, even you two are going to stop me. Bibaidong looked at the two Douluos in disbelief. The two titled Douluos did not speak, but their calm expressions already explained everything. Why must you tear us apart? Just because I am the holy maiden of the Spirit Hall, then can I just stop being the holy maiden? Bibaidong shed tears and shouted at the three of them, including Qian Zunji. Presumptuous, what nonsense are you talking? And her shout seemed to touch upon some untouchable bottom line, as Qian Zunji's face suddenly became distorted. For that piece of trash, you want to leave the Spirit Hall. Forgive him, but Qian Zunji really couldn't control his expression now. You all forced me, I just want to be with Xiaogang. As long as I can be with him, I'd rather be an ordinary person. Bibaidong shouted while crying. Huff and hiss and huff and hiss. Listening to the constant shouting echoing in his ears, Qian Zunji kept taking deep breaths. He never expected that Bibaidong's attitude would be resolute to this extent. You're actually willing to go to this extent for him. What exactly is so good about him? Qian Zunji racked his brains, but couldn't understand what part of Yu Xiaogang was worth his disciple's love. Everything about him is good, he is just worth my love. Bibaidong replied. Fine, fine, since you say so, then I'll see for myself if he's really as good as you say. Dragon Scale Iron Wall, lock her up. Without my order, she is absolutely not allowed to come out. Qian Zunji gripped the scepter in his hand and glared fiercely at Bibaidong. He didn't believe it. Given the personality of Yu Xiaogang that he had investigated, could he really be as wonderful as Bibaidong imagined? Now I've met him too, and he's not as good as you said at all. Standing in front of the door, Qian Zunji described Yu Xiaogang's performance when they met. Qian Zunji originally thought that knowing the truth about Yu Xiaogang would make Bibaidong let go of her fantasies about him. But as a result, HMPH, this is all you've got, trying to smear Xiaogang to make me give up on him. I'll say it straight, it's impossible. Bibaidong's voice was very weak, but her words remained firm, without the slightest intention of backing down. Fine, then starve for him. I'll see how long you can last. Qian Zunji left in anger. At the same time in the room, Bibaidong sat on the floor, leaning against her bed. Her face was pale, but her gaze was incomparably firm. Xiaogang, we will definitely be able to be together. Unfortunately, Bibaidong ultimately failed to wait for Yu Xiaogang and instead fainted due to excessive hunger. In the end, Dragon God Douluo really couldn't bear it and fed her some food, preventing Bibaidong from becoming the first holy maiden in the history of the Spirit Hall to starve to death. The third part has finished playing. Take a break. The comparison object, Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang, is about to start playing. Chapter 88, Qian Rengxu realizes her parents' relationship is bad. Black World, Tiandu Empire, Crown Prince's residence. In the study, Qian Rengxu stared blankly at the woman in the heavenly curtain, who she should call mother. She never knew that her past self had actually experienced such things. Uncle Snake's spear, Uncle Porcupinefish, is all of this true? Qian Rengxu didn't look back, her voice carrying an indescribable confusion. This. Snake Lance Douluo and the other didn't know how to answer. Why bother asking them these things? The heavenly curtain had already shown it all. Of course, they could understand. Their young miss was the daughter of the current Pope Bibaidong and the former Pope Qian Zunji. In their young miss's heart, since her father and mother could give birth to her, there must have been feelings between them. But now, the heavenly curtain had recounted the events of the past. Qian Rengxu was no fool. How could she not see that her mother truly loved that so-called Yu Xiaogang? But this love was ultimately forcibly torn apart by her father. Setting aside Yu Xiaogang's character for a moment. Just speaking of this matter, the role her father played was undoubtedly that of a major villain who tears couples apart. But here came the problem. Her mother was Bibaidong, and her father was the villainous Qian Zunji who had torn apart her mother's love. How did the two of them come together and eventually give birth to her? Qian Rengxu shuddered. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. She had some ominous conjectures in her heart. Thinking further along these conjectures, the reason why her mother had never once looked at her, something she hadn't understood before. This question that had always troubled her seemed to have an answer. But this answer was something Qian Rengxu truly could not accept. White World, Spirit Hall. It's finally over. Next, it's our side's turn. Bibaidong watched the images from the parallel world end, and her eyes couldn't help but light up. Regarding everything that happened in the parallel world, at first, she felt she should be angry. Angry that the Yu Xiaogang over there had ruined her husband's reputation. But as the heavenly curtain continued to play, she suddenly realized she wasn't that angry anymore. Because no matter how she looked at it, the Yu Xiaogang of the parallel world and her husband were two completely different people. She simply couldn't find a single similarity between the other party and her husband. So there was no need to be angry anymore. Speaking of which, once it gets to our side, those stupid things you did back then won't be hidden anymore. From now on, your prestige as the Spirit Hall's Supreme Pontiff will be gone forever. Yu Xiaogang seemed to remember something and suddenly spoke up. Reminded by Yu Xiaogang, Bibaidong suddenly realized. Her eyes widened and her whole body froze there. What's this? The stupid things teacher did back then, what were they? On the other side, Juliana, who was huddled near Kyan Douluo's group, seemed to have activated a perception-type spirit ability. As soon as she heard something about her teacher, she immediately ran over. Ha, simply put. You're not allowed to say it. Seeing Yu Xiaogang about to reveal her secrets, Bibaidong grew anxious. She stepped forward quickly and covered Yu Xiaogang's mouth with her hand. Yu Xiaogang, his mouth covered, rolled his eyes and pulled Bibaidong's hand away. Now you think of stopping my mouth, the heavenly curtain will play it sooner or later anyway. Hearing this, Bibaidong finally lost all her strength and slumped into her chair. So what exactly is it? Juliana pressed for an answer. Since your teacher won't let me say it, I won't. You'd better just watch through the heavenly curtain. Yu Xiaogang sat back down beside Bibaidong, waiting for the heavenly curtain to play with a beaming smile. How mysterious. Juliana muttered and sat back down in her chair. The video continues. In Spirit City, inside a hall specifically used for hosting guests, people dressed in formal attire moved politely through the venue, constantly seeking out familiar faces to talk to. This was a celebratory banquet held by Spirit Hall to commemorate the day of its founding. The celebration invited leaders from various factions across the Douluo continent and powerful experts from all over. Many experts responded to the invitation. After all, during this celebratory banquet, Spirit Hall would also be holding an auction and a treasure exhibition. Even if one didn't want to give face to Spirit Hall, they had to give face to the auction and the treasure exhibition. Wearing these clothes is really awkward. In a corner of the banquet, Yu Xiaogang stood uncomfortably beside Yu Yuanzhen, shifting his body from time to time. For someone who exercised year-round and preferred loose clothing, wearing this kind of formal attire was truly too uncomfortable. Ha, you brat, you still have a lot to learn. Yu Yuanzhen looked at Yu Xiaogang's uncomfortable expression and said cheerfully. Tusk, father, do you think I didn't see? You were shifting around just now too. You're probably not comfortable either, are you? Yu Xiaogang looked at Yu Yuanzhen with a hint of disdain. Yu Xiaogang's words caused the smile on Yu Yuanzhen's face to freeze, and he raised his hand to smack the back of Yu Xiaogang's head. Slap. Hiss, that hurts. Seeing Yu Xiaogang squatting down while clutching his head in pain, he finally nodded in satisfaction. Just then, a commotion broke out, and Yu Yuanzhen looked toward the source of the noise. Not far away, Kyan Zunji, dressed in formal attire, arrived at the venue accompanied by the two Douluos, Dragon Scale and Iron Wall, as well as Bibaidong, whom they had met once before. Brat, get ready. In a moment, I'll take you to greet the Spirit Hall's Supreme Pontiff. Yu Yuanzhen said. Hearing Yu Yuanzhen's words, Yu Xiaogang set aside his indignant expression, and following the training the second elder had given him before they came, adopted a polite and refined demeanor. Soon, Kyan Zunji and his group finished greeting those around them, and the crowd dispersed. So Yu Yuanzhen led Yu Xiaogang forward. It's been a long time, I hope you all have been well. Yu Yuanzhen approached Kyan Zunji's group and greeted everyone. Sect Master Yu, welcome to our Spirit Hall's gathering. I presume this is your younger son. Extraordinary indeed. Kyan Zunji displayed a perfect smile. Greetings, Your Holiness the Pope. Greetings, Your Eminence Dragon Scale, Your Eminence Iron Wall. Greetings, His Excellency Thunder. Yu Xiaogang solemnly bowed to Kyan Zunji and the other two, then finally nodded and smiled at Bibaidong. And Bibaidong, after her initial daze, followed Yu Xiaogang's example, bowing to Yu Yuanzhen and then nodding and smiling back at him. After the greetings, Yu Yuanzhen began to converse with Kyan Zunji. The two talked about trivial, meaningless topics. Dragon Scale Douluo, standing to the side, even started to feel a bit drowsy listening to them. Although Yu Xiaogang also found it boring, he couldn't let it show, so he could only maintain his smile. After an unknown amount of time, Yu Yuanzhen felt it was enough, and finally brought the conversation to the main point. Your Holiness, regarding my son Xiaogang, I have some matters I would like to discuss with you. Hearing this, the three on Kyan Zunji's side immediately perked up. They knew the main point was coming. Chapter 89, Yu Xiaogang, socializing is the absolute worst. You have something you want to discuss with me, I wonder what it is. Kaian Zunji showed a look of curiosity. When my son was born back then, due to certain reasons, his soul was unstable, causing him to be in a daze all day long. It wasn't until the eve of his martial soul awakening that he received the blessings of heaven and recovered. However, although his spirit recovered, his natural talent remained poor, a malignant mutation of his spirit, innate level 1 soul power. I have been distressed over this for years. Yu Yuanzhen spoke with quite some emotion. Given Yu Xiaogang's current situation, who could have thought he had such a start back then? On the other side, the trio led by Kaian Zunji raised their eyebrows upon hearing Yu Yuanzhen's words, wondering what game he was playing. Wasn't this something all the high-level powers on the Douluo continent already knew? Especially after your son obtained his first soul ring, you made a point of publicizing the fact that he successfully changed his fate against the heavens. His Holiness the Pope should know that my son's first soul ring is 1,000-year one, and his subsequent second soul ring is also 1,000-year spirit ring. The empowerment of 2,000-year spirit rings allowed his malignantly mutated spirit to evolve slightly. Then we discovered that his spirit attribute actually changed from our blue lightning tyrant dragon's thunder attribute to the light attribute. Hearing this, Kaian Zunji suddenly understood. He wants to arrange for his son to study here at Spirit Hall. In the entire Douluo continent, it was true that their Kaian family's research into the light attribute was the most profound. Beside him, Bibai Dong listened to her teacher's words and curiously sized up Yu Xiaogang from head to toe. After their encounter in the Stardew Great Forest, she had learned about Yu Xiaogang's situation. She originally thought she and the other party would not belong to the same world. But as a result, when she heard news of him again, she suddenly learned that the other party's first soul ring was actually 1,000-year spirit ring. Her own first soul ring was still only 100-year spirit ring. How could someone whose talent was far inferior to hers have a spirit ring more powerful than hers? Thus, Bibai Dong couldn't help but take note of Yu Xiaogang in her heart. Seeing him today, she didn't see anything about this person that was different from ordinary people. Sect Master Yu, research regarding the light attribute is an inner secret of our Spirit Hall. Even if one joins our Spirit Hall, it isn't something everyone can learn. Kaian Zunji's tone was profound and secretive. But both Yu Yuanzhen and Yu Xiaogang understood. Want to learn? Fine, bring something of equal value to exchange. And for the current Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, the thing most coveted by their entire Douluo continent was no longer the legacy within their sect. What people valued most was the secret formula that could increase the age of spirit rings. How about this? Let Xiaogang study on your side, and our Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect is willing to provide one portion of the secret medicine that improves a soul master's physique. Yu Yuanzhen spoke up. HMPH, Sect Master Yu, you aren't exactly coming to negotiate with us with sincerity. Kaian Zunji shook his head with a smile. To want your son to learn these inner secrets in our Spirit Hall for just one portion, you are underestimating the preciousness of our Spirit Hall's legacy a bit too much. Kaian Zunji stared at Yu Yuanzhen with a calm and composed expression. However, Yu Yuanzhen would not be fooled by his appearance. 2 portions at most. Your Holiness, you should think carefully. This secret formula cannot be obtained anywhere else besides our Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. This one beside you should be your disciple with twin spirits, Bibai Dong, right? Presumably, you will definitely give her one portion of the secret medicine you obtain, and then save one portion for your own descendants. Besides them, who else would be able to receive your reward, Your Holiness? Yu Yuanzhen held up 2 fingers, looking as if this was his bottom line. As he spoke, he also glanced at Bibai Dong. Fine, 2 portions it is. However, Sect Master Yu, the 2 portions I want must be of the same configuration as your son's. Although they all increase the age of spirit rings, your son's results far exceed anyone else's. Surely you won't deny this. Yu Yuanzhen said nothing, which served as a tacit admission of Kaian Zunji's point. Very well, then it's a deal. 2 portions of secret medicine in exchange for your son studying in our Spirit Hall. I hope your son can obtain what he desires. With that, Kyan Zunji beckoned a waiter to bring over wine glasses. He and Yu Yuanjun each took one, and their glasses clinked, signifying the success of the negotiation. Having completed the primary task, next was the banquet phase. As the hosts, Kyan Zunji and his group naturally could not be absent. They had to remain in the center of the crowd. As the sect master of one of the upper three sects and a powerful titled Douluo, there were also many people coming to converse with Yu Yuanjun. Because it was his first time following Yu Yuanjun to such an event, Yu Xiaogang inevitably became the subject of scrutiny for many guests. Since Yu Xiaogang's birth, stories about him had been constantly circulating in the upper circles of the Douluo continent. At first, he caused Yu Yuanjun to lose face, but later he helped Yu Yuanjun regain face and shocked the entire Douluo continent in the process. It could be said that although they had never met the person, everyone present was well acquainted with Yu Xiaogang's great name. Now that the person himself had finally come out to meet people, they had to take a good look at what kind of person he actually was. Following Yu Yuanjun to deal with the coming and going guests, Yu Xiaogang needed to maintain a smile throughout the entire process. Furthermore, facing people's inquiries about his first soul ring, Yu Xiaogang had to personally provide answers. In any case, before long, his face had become somewhat stiff from smiling. Watching his father's twitching mouth as he saw off one friend only to welcome the next, Yu Xiaogang couldn't help but give his father a mental thumbs up. As expected of father, although he's also finding it a bit unbearable like me, on the surface, he acts as if nothing is wrong. It was only because Yu Xiaogang was Yu Yuanjun's son, and was exceptionally familiar with his father, that he could notice his father was also on the verge of reaching his limit. After dealing with another wave of questions, Yu Xiaogang looked around and decided to find a place to hide. He felt that if this continued, he might expose his true nature and just lie on the ground and throw a tantrum. So, while Yu Yuanjun was talking to someone else, Yu Xiaogang stealthily took a few steps back and walked straight toward the corner of the banquet hall, near the balcony. Coming to the balcony door, he opened a crack and nimbly slipped inside. The next second, as the night breeze brushed through his hair, Yu Xiaogang felt his previous gloominess swept away. He looked at the formal where he was wearing and vigorously performed a few radio gymnastic moves. The space was just too small, otherwise he definitely would have done a couple of somersaults. Refreshing. Exhaling a long breath, Yu Xiaogang just wanted to lean on the balcony to rest for a moment and enjoy the night breeze. However, a nearly imperceptible sound of laughter by his ear made Yu Xiaogang's body stiffen. He turned his head inch by inch, and there, in the corner of the balcony, he saw Bibai Dong holding a pastry in one hand and covering her mouth with the other, watching him with a look of being at a loss. Chapter 90, Conversation on the Balcony. Bibi Dong held a snack in one hand and covered her mouth with the other, staring at Yu Xiaogang in a daze. As the certain future holy maiden of the spirit hall, and a super genius with twin spirits, whose talent was visible to the naked eye, Bibi Dong's presence at the banquet was, to some extent, more popular than that of a titled Douluo. After all titled Douluos had already grown up, they had their own social circles and life-and-death friends. Trying to become close brothers with a titled Douluo was as difficult as cultivating into a titled Douluo oneself. But Bibai Dong was different. She was a future titled Douluo, yet she was still so young now. Leaving a good impression at this time, finding opportunities to help her in the future, or sending one's own children to become friends with her. All of these would bring terrifying returns in the future. Thus, after every person who approached Kyan Zunji chatted for a bit, the topic would inevitably shift to Bibai Dong. Her good upbringing and etiquette allowed Bibai Dong to complete her interactions with everyone excellently. But in the end, Bibai Dong was still just a child in her teens. Being steady for a little while was fine, but being steady all the time. Probably no one could do such a thing. Soon, an irritable Bibai Dong found an opportunity and secretly slipped away from her teacher's side. To prevent being found, Bibai Dong went to the balcony and hid in a small corner on the side. With her ears finally at peace, Bibai Dong took out the delicacies she had casually packed into her storage soul tool while passing the dining table and laid them out in front of her one by one. Then it was time for some pleasant solitude. Eating delicious food, enjoying the quiet, solitary environment, and taking out a storybook she had picked up from the street, Bibai Dong felt that this moment was wonderful. Then, just as she was enjoying her solitude, the balcony door suddenly opened. Sensing someone's arrival, Bibai Dong instinctively held her breath, as if the other person wouldn't find her that way. Then she saw Yu Xiaogang, whom she had seen beside His Excellency Thunder earlier, walking out from the hall. Closing the balcony door, Yu Xiaogang walked onto the balcony, felt the evening breeze, and let out a long breath. It seems he's just like me, stifled to death inside. Bibi Dong thought to herself. Then Bibai Dong saw Yu Xiaogang stretch his body quite exaggeratedly. Once finished, a soft but clearly audible refreshing reached her ears. Almost instinctively, Bibai Dong couldn't hold it back and let out a laugh. The moment she laughed, she reacted and quickly covered her mouth with her hands. Unfortunately, Yu Xiaogang had clearly noticed her presence. And so their eyes met. Knighthood. In the silence, Yu Xiaogang's toes inside his shoes kept curling. He was certain that with his current mood, he could have dug out a villa with his toes. At this moment, Yu Xiaogang really wanted to go back a few seconds and strangle his careless self. Why couldn't he observe his surroundings first and make sure no one was there before letting himself go? The good news is that she laughed, letting me know someone was here. This is much better than her hiding here the whole time without me noticing, and then me doing even more embarrassing things. Yu Xiaogang comforted himself in his heart. Hello, are you here for the breeze too? Finally, unable to think of anything else to say, but needing to resolve the current awkwardness, Yu Xiaogang spoke up. Yeah, it seems you don't like staying in the hall talking to those people either. Hearing Yu Xiaogang's words, Bibai Dong lowered her hand from her mouth and quickly pinched herself on the waist. The pain allowed her to suppress the urge to laugh. And so, the two began a normal conversation. From what His Excellency Thunder said, your spirit has the light attribute. Bibi Dong took the initiative to find a topic. For people of the Douluo continent, spirits were always the best entry point. That's right, I didn't expect it to mutate from my family's thunder attribute into the light attribute. Yu Xiaogang replied. Once the initial awkwardness passed, Yu Xiaogang glanced at Bibai Dong. This disciple of the Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff was about the same age as him. Besides her, the most famous young genius spirit masters on the Douluo continent today included the two sons of the current sect master of the Clear Sky sect. There were also children of other famous experts, but compared to them, they were far behind. It could be said that in the future of the Douluo continent, they would surely be the focus of everyone's attention. In fact, he was also a focus of attention. With a unique spirit and innate level 1 soul power, yet obtaining a 1,000-year first soul ring. Everyone was curious about how far someone like him could eventually go. There were even gambling dens opening bets on things like whether he could cultivate to become a spirit saint or a spirit Douluo, or at what age he could become a soul ancestor, a spirit king, and so on. Too many people wanted to witness his rise, or wanted to see him fail. The light attribute, teacher and grandpa high priest are both light attribute users. I just don't know if they'd be willing to guide you. Bibi Dong glanced at Yu Xiaogang, remained silent for a long while, and finally asked, "Can I see it, your first soul ring?" Ever since she heard her teacher say that Yu Xiaogang's first soul ring was actually a 1,000-year one, she had been curious. It wasn't convenient to look while following her teacher just now, but this situation was suitable. No problem. Yu Xiaogang didn't refuse. He had come to the Spirit Hall Academy to study, and his spirit ring would be seen by everyone sooner or later, so there was nothing to hide. As his spirit power circulated, a light flashed in front of Yu Xiaogang. In the next second, the figure of a little dragon appeared before Bibai Dong. Zhaowu. A dragon roar that still carried a milky scent came from the little dragon's mouth. After coming out, the little dragon first got close to Yu Xiaogang before looking at the wide-eyed Bibai Dong. Bibi Dong's height was about the same as Yu Xiaogang's, and thus about the same as the little dragon's. So when Bibaidong saw Yu Xiaogang summon a little dragon about the size of herself, she walked forward in surprise. "Is this your spirit, so amazing?" Being watched with curious eyes by Bibaidong, the little dragon proudly held its head high. That cute appearance made Bibaidong even more excited. She looked at Yu Xiaogang with expectation and a hint of pleading in her eyes. "Can I pet it?" Chapter 91, Bibaidong and Yu Xiaogang, who have no friends. "Can I touch it?" Bibaidong gazed at Yu Xiaogang with an expectant look. Being stared at, Yu Xiaogang looked into Bibaidong's bright pupils and was momentarily dazed. In that moment of his distraction, the little dragon let out a happy cry and directly rubbed its head against Bibaidong's hand. "What a magical spirit!" Bibaidong stroked the little dragon's head, her face full of wonder. Since she began learning about spirits, she was taught that a spirit is the manifestation of one's own power. The one in control of the spirit is always the spirit master themselves. But with Yu Xiaogang, this law seemed to no longer apply. After all, no matter how you looked at it, Yu Xiaogang and the little dragon were two separate entities. While Yu Xiaogang was still hesitating, the little dragon had already agreed. "Little dragon, you rascal." Yu Xiaogang gave an annoyed glance at the little dragon, who had already begun interacting affectionately with Bibaidong and was momentarily speechless. "Your name is Bibaidong, right? Are you currently studying at the Spirit Hall Academy?" Yu Xiaogang watched as Bibaidong pinched the little dragon's cheeks with both hands, turning it into a living emoji, so he found a topic to talk about. "Yes, I'm currently at the Spirit Hall Academy." Bibaidong, having fun with the little dragon, replied to Yu Xiaogang without even looking up. "Then it seems we'll be classmates at the same academy in the future. Can you tell me something about the Spirit Hall Academy?" Hearing this, Bibaidong tilted her head. "To be honest, you shouldn't really ask me about that. Although I study at the Spirit Hall Academy, I'm actually not that familiar with it." "Why?" "It's simple. My teacher is His Holiness the Pope. My talent far exceeds theirs, and the difference in status and talent makes them afraid to even approach me." Speaking of this, the expression on Bibaidong's face became somewhat dejected. Clearly, she felt quite lonely about the fact that no one at the Spirit Hall Academy would come near her. Whenever she saw children her age playing together or sharing secrets, she felt very envious. However, despite her envy, Bibaidong wouldn't take the initiative to blend in with those people. As a genius with full innate soul power and twin spirits, there was no reason for her to chase after others to be their friend. Not long after entering the academy, Bibaidong had asked her teacher about this issue. And her teacher's answer was something Bibaidong remembered vividly. "The fact that they dare not approach you proves their cowardice and inferiority. Such people are destined to have limited achievements in the future. There is no need to waste your mind on such people. For someone to become your friend, at the very least, they must not feel inferior when facing you. Only then can your relationship last." As it turned out, Qian Zunji's viewpoint was correct. Bibaidong once met a decent friend during a spirit fighting match. At first, her relationship with that person was very good, and at that time, Bibaidong thought she was about to have her first friend. But as it happened, in just a short period, Bibaidong's spirit power rose several ranks, while that person's spirit power remained unchanged. Consequently, that person became inferior in front of Bibaidong and became afraid to speak. Ultimately, after a team spirit fighting match, that person completely disappeared from Bibaidong's world. At that point, Bibaidong finally understood the meaning of her teacher's words. Recalling her past experiences, Bibaidong stroked the little dragon's head, turned to look at Yu Xiaogang, and said half-jokingly, "Perhaps you will be the first true friend I make at the Spirit Hall Academy." In Bibaidong's view, regardless of anything else, Yu Xiaogang's background ensured he wouldn't feel inferior in front of her. She was the disciple of a titled Douluo, and he was the son of a titled Douluo. Strictly speaking, his relationship with a titled Douluo was even closer. In terms of talent, she had full innate soul power plus twin spirits, the only one like that in the Douluo continent for hundreds or even thousands of years. But Yu Xiaogang had also achieved the unprecedented feat of a 1,000-year first soul ring. Thinking about it this way, they were indeed suitable to be friends. Friends! Hearing Bibaidong's seemingly joking words, Yu Xiaogang propped his chin with one hand and suddenly thought. It seemed he didn't have any friends yet. Before the age of 5, he lacked the ability to make friends, and afterward he lacked the time. After he obtained his first soul ring back then, Uncle Yi brought his daughter to him and told him to spend some time with her. Then Yu Xiaogang experienced just how much of a brat a child in the Douluo continent could be. Since then, he had never interacted with peers again. Now that he had come to Spirit City and enrolled in the Spirit Hall Academy, those he would interact with in the future would all be his peers. I hope the people I meet in the future are reliable. Yu Xiaogang prayed silently in his heart and then looked at Bibaidong. We'll talk about becoming friends later. By the way, how long do you plan to play with the little dragon? Yu Xiaogang cast a sharp glance at the little dragon. Looking at you, I haven't seen you get this close to anyone else. Anyway, it's still early before the banquet ends. It's good to hide outside for a while. Do you really want to go back to that boring banquet? At the mention of the banquet, Bibaidong's face wrinkled. That look of rejection clearly showed she suffered from the hardships of socializing. Never mind then, I don't want to go back either. After a moment of silence, Yu Xiaogang felt his scalp tingle at the thought of the socializing at the banquet. I see you're quite bored too. Do you want some snacks? Back in the Stardew Great Forest, I said I'd treat you to something delicious when you came to Spirit City. There's no time right now, so why don't you make do with these for now? Bibaidong pointed to a pile of food lined up beside her. All right then. Yu Xiaogang glanced at the food. There were indeed a few items that piqued his interest. So Yu Xiaogang came to Bibaidong's side, and regardless of his formal attire, sat cross-legged on the ground and began picking up some snacks to eat. Delicious. As soon as the snack entered his mouth, Yu Xiaogang's eyes lit up. He looked at the snack in his hand with surprise, really not expecting this thing to bring him such a big surprise. Not bad, right? These are all things I've approved of. Anything I approve of is extraordinary. Bibaidong held her head high, like a proud peacock. Zawu. The little dragon let out a howl of agreement from the side, and its agreement made Bibaidong even more excited. You agree with what I said, right? Ha ha ha, indeed, I said anything I approve of is extraordinary. This food is, and so are you. Chapter 92, Yu Xiaogang's Reflections on the Future. White World Spirit Hall. Looking back at the scene now, it really is quite interesting. Bibaidong giggled while watching the images on the heavenly curtain. That meeting at the banquet back then was not something Bibaidong and Yu Xiaogang had anticipated. Especially Yu Xiaogang, feeling uncomfortable all over, he thought he had found an empty spot to move around a bit, only to have the whole thing witnessed. It was fortunate that the Bibaidong of those years was also someone who didn't much care for those formalities and such. Otherwise, this one incident alone would have caused them awkwardness for a long time. Back then, when I said, perhaps you will be the first friend I make at Spirit Hall Academy, it was originally just to comfort myself. But who could have imagined that everything would actually come true, especially? Speaking to this point, Bibaidong glanced at Yu Xiaogang, only to find that his expression at this moment was somewhat strange. Xiaogang, what's wrong? Oh, it's nothing. Yu Xiaogang snapped back to his senses because of Bibaidong's voice. He waved his hand, acting as if he had just been daydreaming. Hearing this, Bibaidong nodded without thinking much further, then found a new topic to continue their conversation. To the side, Huliena watched how easily her teacher was fooled, and for a moment, she found it hard to watch. My dear teacher, it was obvious that Dragon God His Eminence thought of something because of the heavenly curtain just now, and in all probability, it was something important. And yet, with just a few words from him, you were fooled. Should I say as expected of a love brain? Huliena felt helpless for her teacher. Wake up, teacher, one can tell from this small matter that you are absolutely being led around by the nose by Dragon God His Eminence. Although Huliena believed that, given Yu Xiaogang's character, whatever he was hiding from her teacher probably wasn't anything bad, she really felt speechless for her teacher. Black World Spirit Hall. It was also Hu Liena, but the Hu Liena of the present was not staying with Bibai Dong. Today, Bibai Dong was watching the heavenly curtain alone, which Hu Liena didn't understand at first. But after she finished watching her teacher's past experiences, she understood. This sort of thing was indeed embarrassing to watch together with them. Watching the person involved relive their experiences of being deceived and torn apart was, no matter how you put it, far too awkward. And after seeing how her teacher in the parallel world interacted with that Dragon God Douluo, Hu Liena felt sad for her teacher once again. It was one thing to see oneself being forcibly separated from a loved one, but now she also had to watch images of them together in a parallel world. This was nothing short of a form of torture. Elder Chrysanthemum, Elder Ghost, you two have been by teacher's side for a very long time. That Yu Xiaogang, did he have any further interactions with teacher after that? Hu Liena asked. To the side, Zai Yue and Yan both pricked up their ears. Shoo, I think it's best if you three don't know about these things. Chrysanthemum Douluo glanced at the three of them and spoke irritably. It was obvious, if there had been any interaction, there would be one more person in the Supreme Pontiff Palace right now. Old Ghost, I think it's best if we stay a bit further away from Her Holiness, the Pope lately. How about we take a mission and leave Spirit City for a while? Chrysanthemum Douluo pondered for a moment and looked at the nearby Ghost Douluo. Although it was just a hunch, he felt that as the heavenly curtain continued its broadcast, their Pope was going to go mad. Fine. Ghost Douluo agreed without the slightest hesitation. In fact, it wasn't just Chrysanthemum Douluo, he felt the same way. The video continues. After tasting the snacks Bibai Dong had brought out, the two of them seemed to relax, starting to chat idly about this and that. Bibi Dong, just like years ago, told Yu Xiaogang about the rumors she had heard throughout Spirit City. Besides those, there were many other interesting things. However, as her strength grew, and she began to frequent various places, her appearance became well known to the residents of Spirit City. This resulted in the places where she used to listen to stories no longer being as uninhibited as before. Before, when she came here, she would hear dirt on the upper three sects, secrets of the lower four sects, and the love-hate entanglements of the two great empires' imperial families. But as she became recognized, the stories those people told turned into tales of Spirit Hall members, slaying fallen spirit masters, and the glorious achievements of Spirit Hall. After listening a few times, Bibai Dong realized this had been arranged by her teacher, Qian Zunji. She asked, and sure enough it was. From then on, whenever Bibai Dong went out to the streets, she would put on a bit of a disguise. For example, wearing a wig, or wearing clothes in a style completely different from her own. In any case, it was a battle of wits and courage against her teacher. At one time, I did my makeup to look like an old person and went to the east of the city. I came across a family holding a wedding, so I entered the banquet site. I originally just thought it would be fun, but they actually treated me like a real guest. When I was halfway through eating, the host came over to my side to offer a toast, and seeing me, he just froze. After holding it in for a long time, he said, "Who are you?" making everyone at the table freeze. Bibi Dong recounted her past fun experiences with great animation. And then, Yu Xiaogang asked with great interest. Then I acted like an old person who had been starving for 3 days. I said I couldn't resist the smell here and just came in to start eating. What happened next was the truly interesting part. The newlyweds at that wedding were quite kind. They actually gave me some money. To be honest, I was stunned at the time. Bibi Dong shared her experience with a face full of smiles. Attending that wedding banquet back then was just because she found it interesting while passing by. She hadn't expected to experience something like that. Of course, Bibi Dong didn't eat for free. When she left, she secretly gave 2 gold coins to the couple as her blessing to them. I really didn't expect that the disciple of His Eminence, the Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff, would have this kind of style. I thought you would be the well-behaved and sensible type. Yu Xiaogang said with a sigh of emotion. HMPH, who says that as the Pope's disciple, I can't have this kind of personality. On ordinary days, I maintain etiquette and stay dignified and decent by my teacher's side. I do every one of those things very well. Even the teachers who teach etiquette can't find any fault with me. When it's my free time, everything about me should be governed by myself. Bibi Dong straightened her posture and spoke with quite an aura. Seeing Bibi Dong with her head held high, like a proud peacock, Yu Xiaogang had to admit he was convinced by her words. Indeed, I have perfectly completed my duties in my other roles, so when I cast aside those identities to be myself, why not follow my own heart? He had already submitted a decent report card for his identity as the son of a titled Douluo. So, as Yu Xiaogang himself, what did he want to do? Chapter 93, Parting with Yu Yuanzhen. Where did you go just now? I haven't seen you for ages. Returning to Yu Yuanzhen's side, Yu Xiaogang immediately heard Yu Yuanzhen's resentment-filled words. Looking up at him, he saw that Yu Yuanzhen looked like he had been put through the ringer, staring at him with a deeply aggrieved expression. Father, what's happened to you? Yu Xiaogang almost couldn't hold back his laughter. His father's expression was simply too amusing. What happened? You went off to hide and enjoy some peace, leaving me here all by myself. Everyone who wanted to learn about you could only come to me. Yu Yuanzhen said huffily. Then why did you find a place to hide as well? Yu Xiaogang looked at Yu Yuanzhen in confusion, not understanding how he couldn't figure out such a simple thing. You make it sound easy. I'm not like you. I have friends all over the Douluo continent. And as the sect master of one of the upper three sects, I have to maintain the sect's connections. Yu Yuanzhen said. That sounds so troublesome. It seems I definitely cannot become part of the sect's management in the future, especially not the sect master. Yu Xiaogang had a look of total rejection on his face. Hey you brat, you're dreaming. Don't worry, I'm definitely saving this sect master position for you. Once your strength grows, I'll abdicate immediately. Seeing Yu Xiaogang's resistant look, Yu Yuanzhen felt a surge of annoyance. This is the position of sect master of one of the upper three sects, and you're actually looking down on it. However, despite saying this, Yu Yuanzhen was very satisfied with the confidence Yu Xiaogang displayed. To refuse a management role, or even the position of sect master, one must first be qualified to refuse. What Yu Yuanzhen didn't know was that Yu Xiaogang's refusal was sincere. Through his conversation with Bibi Dong just now, Yu Xiaogang realized that in the past, he had always been striving for the sake of his identity as the son of a titled Douluo. Striving to live up to his father's expectations, to make everyone feel that he was worthy of this status. He had already achieved half of that, the other half would take time to complete slowly. In this case, setting aside the identity of being a titled Douluo son, what did he want to do with his own identity? Yu Xiaogang thought for a moment. Although he hadn't determined exactly what he wanted to do, becoming a sect master was definitely not in his plans. Returning to his father's side and interacting with several more groups of people, the banquet finally came to an end. After the banquet, the father and son returned to their lodgings. Yu Xiaogang took off his formal attire, changed into his daily clothes, and flopped onto the soft bed. A feeling of comfort swept through his body, making him not want to move for a long time. While Yu Yuanzhen wasn't as exaggerated as Yu Xiaogang, seeing him lying on the bed, unwilling to move just like his son, it was clear he was also breathing a sigh of relief. In the following days, Yu Yuanzhen took Yu Xiaogang to attend an auction and a treasure exhibition hosted by Spirit Hall. The reason this auction attracted so many people was that Spirit Hall had released news that there would be a spirit bone for auction this time. Consequently, various powers sent representatives to attend the auction. Since it was his first time at an auction, Yu Xiaogang kept observing the crowd below through the window of their private box. There were many figures here that Yu Xiaogang recognized. For instance, that middle-aged man whose hair and beard were entirely green was the famous Dugu Bo, possessor of the jade phosphor serpent spirit. Or those four middle-aged men sitting together, they were the sect masters of the Clear Sky sect's four major affiliated sects. And on the other side, several people wearing very distinctive clothing were from the 5 elemental academies. In short, through one auction, Yu Xiaogang got to recognize many of the powerhouses of the Douluo continent. The auction was also quite exciting. A group of people would compete to raise prices for a treasure, and Yu Xiaogang could often feel the tension in the air. The final auction item, a spirit bone, was a torso bone from a beast of around 20,000 years. As the most important spirit bone part for a spirit master, a torso bone was extremely precious. Initially, when Yu Yuanzhen saw the torso bone appear, his breathing quickened. However, when Spirit Hall announced that absorbing this torso bone required a fire attribute, and a high-quality fire attribute at that, the crowd almost broke out in curses. In the end, this spirit bone was bought by the wealthy 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. After the auction was the treasure exhibition, Yu Xiaogang had originally wondered if he could find some hidden gems. Unfortunately, without any special abilities, he couldn't tell which items were actually good. It was worth mentioning that when the members of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School arrived at the exhibition, they simply went on a dominant buying spree. That money is no object attitude left Yu Xiaogang inwardly shocked. However, before long, Spirit Hall sent people to kick everyone from the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School out. Supposedly, their buying frenzy had frightened the person in charge, who thought this batch of treasures might all be genuine prizes. After all, it was common knowledge that the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School's hereditary spirit, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda, could identify treasures. Thus, to prevent Spirit Hall from suffering too great a loss, they threw them out. As the members of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School were being dragged away, they were still shouting things like, "Spirit Hall, you guys can't handle the heat," and so on. With the treasure exhibition over, Yu Yuanzhen's purpose for coming to Spirit City was complete. He called Lin Lang, who had arrived in Spirit City early but had been acting independently, and told Yu Xiaogang that he could go to him for anything in the future. With that, Yu Yuanzhen had finished everything he needed to do in Spirit City. Next, he would return to the sect, while Yu Xiaogang would stay in Spirit City to begin his studies. Standing by the carriage, Yu Yuanzhen repeatedly reminded Yu Xiaogang of things to watch out for. Although Yu Xiaogang was clever and sensible, he was, after all, only about 10 years old. Make sure you remember what I've said, don't take it lightly. When it's time to obtain a spirit ring later, remember to send me a message and I'll go with you. Yu Yuanzhen urged. Oh, you've already said that several times. I can recite it backward by now. Don't worry, I've remembered it all. Yu Xiaogang said somewhat helplessly. Looking at Yu Xiaogang's youthful face, Yu Yuanzhen stepped forward and pulled him into a hug. Father, it's not like I'm leaving the sect forever. I'll come back during the holidays. Held in Yu Yuanzhen's embrace, Yu Xiaogang felt his father's strength. Although he was a bit embarrassed, he didn't have the slightest thought of struggling. From Yu Yuanzhen, he had never lacked for anything. So Yu Xiaogang felt very fortunate to be his father's son. After a long while, Yu Yuanzhen let go of Yu Xiaogang. After a few more reminders, he finally boarded the carriage. Watching the carriage disappear at the end of the road, Yu Xiaogang took a deep breath. Leaving the sect, leaving his father, from now on, he would have to walk the path on his own. Spirit Hall Academy, here I come. Chapter 94, The Transfer Student of Spirit Hall Academy. Spirit Hall Academy. As the place where Spirit Hall nurtures the younger generation, it can be said that this place is highly valued. Every year at the start of the school term, Qian Zunji, in his capacity as the Supreme Pontiff, attends the opening ceremony to make an appearance before the newly enrolled young spirit masters. This year was no exception. On the stage, the high-ranking officials of Spirit Hall Academy and Spirit Hall sat in order, all watching Supreme Pontiff Qian Zunji's speech ahead. Below, students from various grades of Spirit Hall Academy listened to Qian Zunji's speech with differing expressions. The lower-grade students, most of whom were now flushed with excitement, stared at the Supreme Pontiff on the stage, sitting perfectly upright. Since the Spirit Hall Academy in Spirit City is the headquarters, the spirit masters who can come here have all been screened through elementary and intermediate academies and are considered talented individuals. To say nothing of other things, being under 15 years old, above level 30, and having the optimal spirit ring configuration, if even one of these conditions is missing, one cannot enter here. However, despite their good talent, Spirit Hall Academy is not like the academies of the two great empires, where admissions generally require some background. Many students of Spirit Hall Academy were originally commoners. Therefore, being able to see the legendary His Holiness the Pope on their first day at Spirit Hall Academy was simply an unimaginable thing for them. The higher grade students were more composed, most of them looked drowsy. There were also some energetic ones, looking at the excited lower grade students with playful expressions. Besides that, there were also some people chatting secretly. "Hey, have you guys heard? It seems our class is getting a transfer student." In the crowd, Bibaidong, who was resting with her eyes closed, twitched her ears as she heard people whispering around her. "A transfer student, what's the deal?" "Well, I also heard it while passing by the teacher's office. They said it's someone sent with special care from above." "What are the specifics?" "I'm not quite sure, but I heard the teacher say that the person seems to be a spirit grandmaster who hasn't even reached level 30. A spirit grandmaster. A spirit grandmaster can come to our academy. Isn't this place only for those above level 30? Does that even need to be said? They must have a background. Tusk, how disgusting, making us classmates with a level 20-something spirit grandmaster. It's disgusting, but there's nothing we can do. Who told them to have a background? Humph, so what if they have a background? Spirit masters still have to speak with their strength. Just wait, if this is true, I'll show him a lesson then. Hey, don't be impulsive. I already said they have a background. Can't I just invite him to a spirit fighting match normally? No matter how deep his background is, doesn't he still have to engage in spirit fighting? This is our basic curriculum. Good idea, why didn't I think of that? People who only rely on their backgrounds should be made to understand that what we can truly rely on in the Douluo continent is our own fists. Night. As time passed, more and more new voices joined the discussions around her. Hearing their words, Bibaidong just wanted to laugh right now. Upon hearing the words transfer student, Bibaidong already knew who they were talking about. It couldn't possibly be anyone other than Yu Xiaogang. Under normal circumstances, given Yu Xiaogang's strength and age, he shouldn't have come to the Spirit Hall Academy headquarters to study. But there are always exceptions to everything. Just like herself, could someone like her, who was taken in as a disciple by the Supreme Pontiff so early, have risen all the way from an elementary academy? Although Yu Xiaogang's situation was different from hers, he had come with the genuine purpose of learning internal knowledge. Aside from those circumstances, Yu Xiaogang's own situation was enough for Spirit Hall Academy to make an exception. Of course, although Bibaidong didn't think highly of those who wanted to move against Yu Xiaogang. She was very much looking forward to this battle taking place. For no other reason than Yu Xiaogang's two spirit abilities and his special beast spirit. Bibaidong was very curious about what Yu Xiaogang's spirit abilities specifically were, and what kind of combat style his separate beast spirit could demonstrate. Although Bibaidong had said during her previous chat with Yu Xiaogang that perhaps he could become her first true friend. Whether they could become friends wasn't something a single sentence could decide. If Yu Xiaogang was too pathetic, even if he was the son of the Thunder Douluo, and even if their conversation had been pleasant, Bibaidong might not necessarily be willing to accept such a friend. In the earlier conversation of those people, one sentence was very true. The only thing one can truly rely on in the Douluo continent is one's own fists. Before long, Qian Zunji's speech ended. Afterward, several other academy officials stood up to speak, though none were as eloquent as Qian Zunji. And so, the opening ceremony soon concluded. All the students returned to their respective class areas, waiting for the teachers to arrange their cultivation and study tasks for the coming period. Bibaidong arrived at her class's training ground. Under the gaze of everyone's respectful, admiring and adoring eyes, she found a spot she liked, sat cross-legged, and began to meditate quietly. Bibaidong was in the elite class. The elite class was the true core of Spirit Hall Academy. Those who could enter were basically talents with promising futures. Normally, the teacher in charge of the elite class should be a spirit saint. But because of Bibaidong, their teacher was now a spirit Douluo, and titled Douluos also frequently came to give them a few lessons. Consequently, everyone in the elite class was very grateful to Bibai Dong, the disciple of the Supreme Pontiff. However, along with their gratitude, their attitude toward Bibai Dong was also very cautious. Because they knew very well that they and Bibai Dong were not on the same level. Soon, a tall, stern-faced, middle-aged man arrived at the training ground. This was the spirit Douluo in charge of the elite class. Of course, the teacher's arrival did not attract much attention from the students. What they cared about more was the youth following beside their teacher. The youth was undoubtedly Yu Xiaogang as soon as he arrived. He became the focus of everyone's attention. While everyone was sizing up Yu Xiaogang also glanced at the people in the training ground. A rough glance showed 20 or 30 people, most of whom were much older than him. Thus, in the crowd, Bibai Dong, who was about the same age as him, was particularly conspicuous. Of course, the moment he entered the training ground, Yu Xiaogang keenly sensed the hostility toward him in the eyes of these students. Yu Xiaogang wasn't particularly surprised by this. He just found it interesting. It seems my time studying at Spirit Hall Academy won't be too peaceful. Chapter 95, The Elite Class Teacher Who Dislikes Yu Xiaogang. Even though Yu Xiaogang felt that his time as a student wouldn't be too peaceful, he absolutely didn't expect the conflict to arrive so quickly. Let me introduce you. This is a transfer student for our elite class. His name is Yu Xiaogang. The spirit Douluo named Zhao Zunxing gave a simple introduction of Yu Xiaogang. Of course, Zhao Zunxing didn't mention details such as his spirit or rank. When he received the order from the Supreme Pontiff to be responsible for Yu Xiaogang, Zhao Zunxing was actually quite reluctant. Yes, Yu Xiaogang's father was the famous Thunder Douluo, Yu Yuanzhen. But not everyone wanted to get on good terms with a titled Douluo. Zhao Zunxing was such a person. He was a spirit master of commoner origin. In his youth, his hometown was oppressed by nobles, so he felt a deep loathing for the nobility. In Zhao Zunxing's eyes, the so-called upper 3 sects and lower 4 sects were just nobles who possessed great strength. Consequently, Zhao Zunxing had never had a good impression of them. Regarding this little young master from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, Zhao Zunxing only felt he was a nuisance. He explained his reluctance to Qian Zunji, but unfortunately, Qian Zunji did not agree to his request to refuse. So in the end, Zhao Zunxing still led Yu Xiaogang to the elite class he was in charge of. After introducing Yu Xiaogang's name, Zhao Zunxing swept his gaze across the crowd. Bibi Dong, for the next while, if he encounters anything he doesn't understand, please explain it to him. Zhao Zunxing glanced at Bibi Dong in the crowd and then spoke. May. Bibi Dong pointed at herself, looking at Zhao Zunxing with some confusion. Yes, I'll leave it to you from now on. Zhao Zunxing gave Bibai Dong a smile. In fact, even though he had already brought Yu Xiaogang here, Zhao Zunxing still didn't really want to teach him. Firstly, as the son of a titled Douluo from a non-spirit hall power, his identity was very troublesome. Secondly, he had always disliked nobles, especially those who used the back door. So Zhao Zunxing's idea was very simple. Since His Holiness the Pope didn't agree with my idea of not letting you join the elite class, then I'll find a way to make you want to leave on your own. And arranging for Bibai Dong to be responsible for guiding Yu Xiaogang was for this very purpose. Because Bibai Dong's status in the elite class was extraordinary. As the disciple of the Supreme Pontiff and a super genius, there were people in the elite class who respected her, admired her, and worshipped her. Ask yourself, when a group of such people sees a certain man able to easily approach Bibai Dong, what would they think? The answer was obvious. And the reality was just as Zhao Zunxing expected. Once Bibai Dong nodded in agreement, the gaze of the group of boys toward Yu Xiaogang changed. They were already annoyed by people who used their background to get privileges, and now this guy dared to have an association with the genius of their elite class. How overconfident! The students of the elite class subconsciously ignored the role Zhao Zunxing played in this matter and attributed all the blame to Yu Xiaogang. Looking at his student's high-spirited appearance, Zhao Zunxing nodded with satisfaction. So what if you have a titled Douluo father? So what if you have a 1,000-year first soul ring? You are currently only a spirit master in the 20s. In our elite class, there are plenty of people who can deal with you. All right, next I will formulate new cultivation plans for you based on your specific situations. A vacation has passed, and I don't want to see any of you slacking off. As Zhao Zunxing's voice rang out, everyone immediately pulled their attention away from Yu Xiaogang. Zia Nianfen. Present. What is your spirit power rank now? Reporting to Teacher Zhao, my spirit power is now rank 43. Increased by 1 rank over the vacation. Not bad, keep working hard, by Bingbing. Present. Your situation. Hee reporting to Teacher, my spirit power has increased by 2 ranks, I'm already rank 46. Very good, it seems you were also very diligent during the vacation. Next. One student after another, whose name was called, stood up and reported their growth over the vacation. For those with good progress, Zhao Zunxing offered a few words of praise. For those who stood still, Zhao Zunxing gave a few rebukes. As the voices rang out one by one, Yu Xiaogang discovered that in this group from the elite class, not a single person's spirit power was below rank 40. And looking at their ages, they were all in their teens. From this, one could see the caliber of the Spirit Hall Academy. Once these people grew up, they would be the backbone of the Spirit Hall in the future. Bibi Dong. Present. As Bibi Dong's name was called, everyone's eyes focused on her. How is your situation? Reporting to Teacher, my spirit power is currently rank 32. Bibi Dong reported her rank with a calm face. His rank 32. Heavens, so fast. As expected of the Supreme Pontiff's disciple. Knighthood. A chorus of gasps rang out. Even Zhao Zunxing was stunned for a few seconds before laughing with a flushed face. Ha ha ha, very good, Bibi Dong, you indeed did not disappoint the Supreme Pontiff's expectations. Zhao Zunxing looked at Bibi Dong, sighing inwardly. Having taught such a student, he would have a lot of face when speaking of it in the future. Beside her, Yu Xiaogang was equally surprised by Bibi Dong's cultivation speed. Back when he obtained his first soul ring, Bibi Dong was obtaining her second soul ring. At that time, he already knew Bibi Dong was a genius. Now, 2 years had passed. He had only just obtained his second soul ring, while she had already obtained her third soul ring. Going from rank 10 to 20, and from rank 20 to 30, were 2 completely different intervals. Regarding such a cultivation speed from Bibi Dong, Yu Xiaogang could only say she truly lived up to being a genius. Yu Xiaogang, what about your rank? Just as Yu Xiaogang was surprised by Bibi Dong's cultivation, Zhao Zunxing looked at him. I am currently rank 24. Yu Xiaogang reported his rank. With the 5000-year second soul ring, most of the power within the spirit ring was still used for Little Dragon's evolution. The remaining power was used to increase Yu Xiaogang's spirit power. Even so, the residual spirit power still directly boosted his rank to 23, and after another period of cultivation, he finally reached rank 24. Rank 24. Zhao Zunxing raised an eyebrow and glanced at Yu Xiaogang, seemingly not expecting him to have reached rank 24 already. After all, the fact that Yu Xiaogang's innate soul power was rank 1 was known to everyone in the upper echelons of the Douluo continent. To reach rank 24 at this age, with an innate soul power of rank 1, was simply incredible. Zhao Zunxing knew Yu Xiaogang's background, so he was surprised, but the students of the elite class didn't know his background. At this moment, most of the students in the elite class looked at Yu Xiaogang with eyes full of disdain. Only rank 24 and you use the back door to enter the Spirit Hall Academy's elite class. You really have no shame. Chapter 96, Yu Xiaogang showing his edge. The disdain and rejection the elite class students felt for Yu Xiaogang was displayed directly on their faces, almost without any concealment. Yu Xiaogang actually understood the mindset of these people quite well. Putting himself in their shoes, he had worked hard step by step to become a student of this elite class. At such a time, if another person relied on their background and easily entered the class with strength far inferior to his own, he would also feel uncomfortable. However, understanding was one thing, but the resources at hand still needed to be utilized properly. On the Douluo continent, strength is respected above all else. When it came to matters of improving one's own strength, things like mindset and face were all unimportant. Once his strength became great, there would naturally be scholars to justify his ways. Level 24, then you are the one with the lowest strength in our elite class. Are you sure you can keep up with our cultivation progress? You should know that although the cultivation content I arrange for the elite class students varies, there are certain standards. Then there are the internal sparring matches of the elite class. They won't show mercy just because you are a few years younger. Even Bibai Dong, as the disciple of His Holiness the Pope, suffered frequent defeats when she first entered the elite class. Zhao Zunxing spoke with a somewhat cold voice. The purpose of saying these things was to scare off Yu Xiaogang. Don't worry, teacher, my cultivation intensity is not low at all. As for the sparring, at this point, Yu Xiaogang looked around, taking in all the provocative gazes of the elite class students. I actually hope everyone can let me witness the power of the Spirit Hall Academy's elite class. I hope they aren't just some guys who sound impressive, but are actually fragile when it comes to a real fight. Yu Xiaogang's words were somewhat sharp and aggressive. But this was exactly the attitude he intended to use with these elite class students. Coming to the Spirit Hall Academy, his primary goal was to learn the knowledge of Spirit Hall while making himself stronger. Sparring with the elite class students, with Zhao Zunxing, a Spirit Douluo watching over them, wouldn't lead to any loss of life. Under these circumstances where his safety could be guaranteed, Yu Xiaogang planned to properly enrich his combat experience. Furthermore, since this group of elite class students was already treating him with such disdain, wouldn't he seem too cowardly if he still interacted with them politely? What, you? Damn it, how dare he be so arrogant? A guy who came in through the back door, how is he worthy of saying such things? Humph, only level 24 and he dares to talk so big. It seems we need to let this fellow know that this isn't his home. No one will look after him here. Teacher Zhao, I want to apply to fight him. Me too. And me. Knighthood. Sure enough, everything was as Yu Xiaogang expected. As his voice fell, the elite class students were first stunned, and then their faces quickly turned red with anger. Immediately after, they began to clamor at Yu Xiaogang. Quiet. Annoyed by the noisy clamor in his ears, Zhao Zunxing spoke coldly, and in the next second, the training ground returned to silence. Yu Xiaogang, although I know you are extraordinary, sometimes it is better to be a bit more humble. Zhao Zunxing said to Yu Xiaogang. Normally, those who can enter our Spirit Hall Academy's elite class are at least level 40. These people, if placed outside, would be enough to be called geniuses. You are only level 24 now, 2 spirit rings behind a level 40 spirit master. This gap is not something that can be easily crossed. Zhao Zunxing's voice was somewhat stern, although he didn't like Yu Xiaogang, who had suddenly been inserted into his class. But as a spirit master senior, he still hoped the other party would be humble and not too conceited. Zhao Zunxing had seen countless spirit masters lose their lives due to arrogance. Thank you for the reminders, Teacher Zhao, but I don't think I am being arrogant. Yu Xiaogang first thanked Zhao Zunxing, hearing the cautionary intent in his words. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. However, Yu Xiaogang truly didn't feel that there was too vast a gap between him and the group of spirit masters before him. His physical fitness, after easily absorbing a 5,000-year second soul ring, was already at the undisputed level of a spirit ancestor. In addition, because of the increase in total spirit power brought by his first soul ring's passive, in terms of spirit power, he was now not at all inferior to most spirit ancestors. And the spiritual improvement brought by the second soul ring's passive made him equally strong in the spiritual aspect. Thus, in all 3 aspects of essence, Kai and spirit, he was not inferior to a spirit ancestor. Compared to a spirit ancestor, all he lacked were 2 spirit abilities. However, the spirit abilities of his first 2 spirit rings, along with Little Dragon's ability to fight alongside him, compensated well for this deficiency. Therefore, although he was only level 24 now, he wasn't afraid at all of fighting a level 40 spirit ancestor. Humps, how ungrateful. Seeing Yu Xiaogang's confident look, Zhao Zunxing let out a cold snort. A level 20 plus spirit grandmaster wants to fight a level 40 plus spirit ancestor, and he still doesn't think he's arrogant. Zhao Zunxing had seen countless arrogant people, but it was his first time seeing someone as arrogant as Yu Xiaogang. Since you're so confident, don't come complaining to me when you get beaten up later, Zhao Zunxing said finally. After speaking, he began his normal class routine, sharing cultivation-related experiences with the students. As Zhao Zunxing began his lecture, the elite class students, who were still indignant about Yu Xiaogang's attitude, immediately suppressed their dissatisfaction and began to listen intently. Yu Xiaogang also found a suitable spot and began to listen to Zhao Zunxing's cultivation experiences. Although he had heard countless explanations on how to cultivate from his father, often drawing on the strengths of many and summarizing one's own methods is the right path of the cultivation journey. Therefore, Yu Xiaogang listened very carefully. Not far away, Bibaidong listened to Zhao Zunxing's explanation and occasionally looked back at Yu Xiaogang. Seeing him listening so seriously, she felt a bit embarrassed to let her mind wander. After explaining for an hour, Zhao Zunxing stopped and allowed everyone to ask questions for him to answer. This session lasted for another hour. Almost everyone, even the newcomer Yu Xiaogang, raised their own questions. And Zhao Zunxing patiently answered them one by one. When the Q&A session ended, Zhao Zunxing glanced at Yu Xiaogang. All right, next is the practical combat session. Upon hearing this, everyone's gaze converged on Yu Xiaogang simultaneously. Chapter 97, The Shock Brought by 2,000-Year Spirit Rings. Under everyone's gaze, Yu Xiaogang's expression remained calm. He knew his upcoming battle was the focus, but he did not fear the challenge. Fan Yun Meng Yan, you two come up and have a match first. Zhao Zunxing looked around and finally called out two names. Hearing these two names, many people were somewhat disappointed. Of course, it was only a little, as they knew Yu Xiaogang couldn't escape this battle. Soon, the two called names came to the center of the field and began their sparring match under Zhao Zunxing's instructions. Both were four-ring spirit ancestors, and both had the optimal spirit ring configuration. This kind of battle among the younger generation could only be easily seen within the Spirit Hall Academy. Before long, the battle ended, and Zhao Zunxing called the next group. In this way, as time passed, students went up one by one and completed their battles. Next group, Qin Heyu, your opponent. At this point, Zhao Zunxing's gaze finally landed on Yu Xiaogang. Your opponent is Yu Xiaogang. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang stood up. At the same time, on the other side, a man with sharp eyebrows and starry eyes, black hair and black eyes, wearing green clothing, stood up. He wasn't particularly muscular, but he exuded a sense of composure. Hearing the names Zhao Zunxing called, everyone showed an expression of looking forward to a good show. Hee, it's actually Qin Heyu. It seems Teacher Zhao doesn't like this transfer student either. Isn't that obvious? Everyone knows Teacher Zhao hates those aristocrats the most. Tusk, with Qin Heiyu's strength, that guy is in for it. That's how it should be, otherwise people would think any trash can enter our elite class. Come, place your bets. Guess how long that kid can last against Qin Heiyu. Given Qin Heiyu's merciless fighting style, I bet 3 minutes. I bet 1 minute. I think the winner might be decided in just a few moves. He's only a level 20-something spirit grandmaster, lasting 3 minutes. You're overestimating him too much. Knighthood. Zhao Zunxing heard the students' discussions, but didn't pay them any mind. Just as they thought, he did indeed intend to make Yu Xiaogang back down, which was why he chose Qin Heiyu to fight him. Coming to the center of the field, Yu Xiaogang stood still. Soon, Qin Heiyu stood 10 meters away from him. Qin Heiyu. Level 45 Battle Spirit Ancestor, Spirit, Jade Wind Sword. Qin Heiyu introduced himself first, and with a lift of his hand, a jade green longsword appeared in his grasp. Yu Xiaogang Level 24 Battle Spirit Master, Spirit, Zyro Long. Yu Xiaogang also introduced himself. Meanwhile, with a flash of light and a dragon's roar, Zyro Long appeared by Yu Xiaogang's side. Upon appearing, Zyro Long stared intensely at Qin Heiyu, looking full of battle intent. Is this the so-called separate beast spirit? Zhao Zunxing, watching from the side, raised an eyebrow as he looked at Zyro Long. The most widely circulated information about Yu Xiaogang was, firstly, his 1,000-year first soul ring, and secondly, his unique beast spirit. It was also his first time seeing such a peculiar spirit. If even someone like Zhao Zunxing, who knew about it, reacted this way, let alone those who knew nothing about Yu Xiaogang. Is that a spirit beast? The spectators looked at each other, unable to quite understand the situation before them. Although Bibaidong understood, she had no intention of explaining it to everyone right now. She just wanted to see how Yu Xiaogang and Zyro Long fought. Your spirit. Looking at Zyro Long, who was staring at him with intense battle intent, Qin Heiyu was somewhat at a loss. Because the scene before him was beyond his understanding. Just fight normally, don't worry about me. Yu Xiaogang knew what Qin Heiyu was worried about, nothing more than whether attacking Zyro Long would cause any bad consequences. But as for Zyro Long, Yu Xiaogang had already investigated thoroughly. Zyro Long's body was composed purely of spirit power, no amount of damage posed a threat to it. If it got injured, he only needed to dismiss the spirit and summon Zyro Long again for it to appear in peak condition. Of course, repairing the damage Zyro Long sustained required a large amount of spirit power. Through testing, Yu Xiaogang found that physical damage required his own spirit power to replenish. Mental damage, however, would cause damage to his own spirit. Are you sure? Don't worry, I know my spirit very well. Hearing Yu Xiaogang's certain words, Qin Heiyu nodded, then circulated his spirit power. 4 spirit rings rose, 2 yellow and 2 purple. Yu Xiaogang also circulated his spirit power, and in the next second, 2 purple spirit rings appeared around him. This? Impossible. What is that? Oh my god. Night. Exclamations echoed through the training grounds as everyone looked at the 2 purple spirit rings around Yu Xiaogang in disbelief. Knowing that Yu Xiaogang's spirit power was at level 24, he could only have 2 spirit rings at most. That meant these 2 purple spirit rings were Yu Xiaogang's first soul ring and second soul ring. But how was that possible? 1,000-year spirit ring as the first soul ring, were they sure they weren't dreaming? Teacher Zhao, his 1,000-year spirit ring is fake, right? A confused student shouted directly at Zhao Zunxing, finding it hard to believe everything before his eyes. Because if Yu Xiaogang really had a 1,000-year first soul ring, then what were they? Even Qin Heiyu, standing opposite Yu Xiaogang, looked to Zhao Zunxing for help. His 1,000-year first soul ring is real. However, Zhao Zunxing's words shattered their illusions. As for how it was achieved, everyone pricked up their ears, but what they heard was Zhao Zunxing's regrettable words. This is a secret belonging to Yu Xiaogang's sect. Even His Holiness the Pope is unaware of it. Hearing this, everyone looked disappointed. After the initial shock, Qin Heiyu, standing opposite Yu Xiaogang, took a deep breath. It seems we underestimated you before. I didn't expect you to be such a monster. In the coming battle, I will not show mercy. If you can't handle it, remember to call for a stop. Hearing this, the corners of Yu Xiaogang's mouth curled up, revealing a confident smile. My attitude remains the same as before. I hope you don't just sound powerful, but prove to be incapable of taking a hit in battle. Hearing this, Qin Heiyu and the others in the elite class did not get as emotional as before. Because the shock brought by Yu Xiaogang's 2,000-year spirit rings was simply too great. This was something that even the currently known titled Douluos of the Douluo continent had not been able to achieve. Yet Yu Xiaogang had done it. Under these circumstances, if they were to look down on Yu Xiaogang again, it would be because they were too arrogant. Chapter 98, the debut of man and dragon fighting side by side. Remember, if you feel you can't take it, call for a stop. don't push yourself too hard. Zhao Zunxing glanced at the two of them, especially Yu Xiaogang. Even though Yu Xiaogang's first 2 spirit rings were of the 1,000-year level, he still didn't think he could defeat Qin Heiyu across a gap of 20 ranks. The match begins. At Zhao Zunxing's command, Qin Heiyu, facing Yu Xiaogang, immediately used the spirit ability of his first soul ring. First spirit skill, Jade Wind Sword Kai. The yellow first soul ring shone brightly. In the next second, Qin Heiyu swung the longsword in his hand, and 2 wind blades shot rapidly toward Yu Xiaogang. After releasing the wind blades, Qin Heiyu charged straight toward Yu Xiaogang without a word. Xiao Long. Xiaowu. Seeing this, Yu Xiaogang called out to Xiao Long, and then his 1,000-year first soul ring shone with light. Immediately after, Xiao Long and Yu Xiaogang moved in unison. As a spirit, Xiao Long flapped its wings and flew into the sky. Then, in front of Xiao Long, light particles condensed like raindrops. Zura! With a roar full of juvenile energy, the sky full of light particles flew toward Qin Heiyu like swarming insects. Meanwhile, Yu Xiaogang rushed forward to meet the 2 wind blades. Just as he was about to make contact, he raised his hand and light condensed in front of him, forming a shield. Bangs bang! 2 muffled thuds sounded as the wind blades sank into the light shield and vanished without a trace. Qin Heiyu, following behind the wind blades, tried to bypass the light shield. However, before he could change direction, the light shield dissolved into a shower of light particles, and Yu Xiaogang emerged from them holding a light sword. Looking at Qin Heiyu in front of him, Yu Xiaogang swung his sword in a strike. Clang! Qin Heiyu raised his sword to parry. Their weapons clashed, and thus began their close-quarters combat. Qin Heiyu wanted to suppress Yu Xiaogang with his power as a spirit ancestor, but as he continued to swing his weapon, he was shocked to find that he was actually evenly matched with Yu Xiaogang. I'm a spirit ancestor, yet I can't suppress a spirit grandmaster. You've got to be kidding me. Qin Heiyu felt it was absurd. However, at this moment, Xiao Long's light particles also reached Qin Heiyu. Seeing the rain-like light particles about to fall on him, Qin Heiyu gritted his teeth. Second spirit skill, Wind Transformation. A jade-green light shone on Qin Heiyu's body, and immediately after, he retreated abruptly. The dense light particles fell to the ground, causing a series of explosions. Although the impact of each individual particle was small, their sheer number was overwhelming. Seeing Qin Heiyu retreat, Yu Xiaogang continued his pursuit with his sword. However, Qin Heiyu's second spirit skill was clearly a speed-boosting type, and he quickly pulled away from Yu Xiaogang. Seeing that he couldn't catch up, Yu Xiaogang threw the light sword in his hand directly at Qin Heiyu. Is he acting out of desperation? Seeing Yu Xiaogang's action, Qin Heiyu was somewhat puzzled, but his expression soon changed. As the light sword flew toward him, Qin Heiyu easily dodged the thrown weapon using his speed. However, after throwing the sword, Yu Xiaogang did not pursue. Instead, he condensed 2 more light swords around his body. The light swords hovered above Yu Xiaogang's head. Once they were fully formed, Yu Xiaogang flicked his fingers, and the 2 swords immediately flew toward Qin Heiyu as nimbly as birds. At the same time, the sound of breaking wind from behind made Qin Heiyu glance back with his peripheral vision. He saw that the light sword Yu Xiaogang had thrown had made a turn behind him and was flying back at him. He can actually control those thrown objects at will. What a troublesome spirit ability. Qin Heiyu frowned as he looked at the 3 light swords flying toward him and at Yu Xiaogang, who was controlling them. And then there was Xiao Long in the sky, releasing even more light particles, as if trying to fill the entire training ground with them, leaving him no way to escape. For the first time, Qin Heiyu experienced what it felt like to be utterly stifled. He was clearly a spirit ancestor, while his opponent was just a spirit grandmaster. Yet in battle, the opponent was shamelessly fighting 2-on-1. Although they had only exchanged a few moves, Qin Heiyu already understood Yu Xiaogang's combat strategy. He and his spirit acted separately. Because Yu Xiaogang possessed physical fitness comparable to his own, and could condense weapons from spirit power, his main body engaged in close-quarters combat. Meanwhile, that beast spirit, which looked like a spirit beast, stayed in the sky to launch long-range attacks. One far and one near, they formed a coordination that left him feeling restricted in battle. If he wanted to deal with Yu Xiaogang's main body, Xiao Long's long-range attacks would make it difficult for him to focus on the fight. If he wanted to deal with Xiao Long's long-range attacks, he had to be wary of Yu Xiaogang's close-quarters combat. But the biggest problem now was that with the strength Yu Xiaogang displayed, he simply couldn't take him down easily. So how on earth was he supposed to fight this? Why in the world would someone find themselves being ganged up on in a one-on-one battle? With a massive headache, Qin Heiyu began to endure Yu Xiaogang's continuous attacks. Under Yu Xiaogang's control, the three light swords fought him with great agility. One light sword kept slashing at close range. While clashing with this sword, Qin Heiyu felt as if he were facing a very powerful swordsman. Under normal circumstances, Qin Heiyu would have liked to properly appreciate Yu Xiaogang's sword techniques. However, the other two light swords were like a thorn in his side. Whenever he swung his own Jade Wind Sword, a light sword would fly in, aiming for his blind spots. In response, Qin Heiyu could only repeatedly use his third soul skill Green Wind Guidance. This move could stir the green wind around Qin Heiyu's body to deflect attacks, serving as his defensive spirit ability. But using this move frequently caused Qin Heiyu's spirit power to deplete rapidly. Qin Heiyu also tried to break through the siege of the three flying swords to go straight for Yu Xiaogang. But once he got in front of Yu Xiaogang would recall the light swords to his hands and start clashing in close combat again, leaving him with no options. Finally, after a period of competition, Xiao Long finally controlled the light particles to completely surround Qin Heiyu. Looking at the dense light particles all around him and the three light swords hovering in front of him. Even though Qin Heiyu was very unwilling that he, a dignified spirit ancestor, was actually powerless to fight back in a battle against a spirit grandmaster. But on second thought, he couldn't beat Yu Xiaogang in close combat, and he couldn't beat him at long range either. In this situation, was there any other outcome besides losing the battle? I concede. Ultimately, no matter how unwilling he was, Qin Heiyu could only say those words. Good match. Having secured the victory, Yu Xiaogang patted the head of Xiao Long, who had landed beside him, and spoke with a smile. Although Qin Heiyu had conceded, no one in the training ground said a word for a long time. Everyone was stunned by the combat power Yu Xiaogang had displayed. Chapter 99, Yu Xiaogang, I can take on a whole group of you alone. Qin Heiyu's voice admitting defeat rang out, and for a long while, no one in the training ground spoke. Because the scene before them was far too beyond everyone's expectations. The battle between Qin Heiyu and Yu Xiaogang had seemed very simple. It was simply Yu Xiaogang suppressing Qin Heiyu from start to finish. Despite Qin Heiyu's several attempts to struggle, he couldn't stir up even the slightest ripple. They could see the indignation in Qin Heiyu's eyes when he surrendered. If it were them, they would likely feel the same way. On what basis? On what basis could a spirit grandmaster suppress and beat a spirit ancestor? Even Bibai Dong, the disciple of the Spirit Hall's Supreme Pontiff Qianzunji, could not have achieved such a relaxed and effortless state when fighting them in a serious match. All right, the battle is over. Qin Heiyu, analyze the reasons for your failure properly. Taking a deep breath, Zhao Zunxing glanced at Qin Heiyu and gave him a reminder before looking toward Yu Xiaogang. Before the battle began, he had thought it was impossible for Yu Xiaogang to defeat Qin Heiyu. A 20-rank difference and a gap of 2 spirit rings was not something that could be compensated for just by having slightly better spirit ring quality. But now, he had to admit that he had been looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. Yu Xiaogang, can both your spirit and you yourself use your spirit ability? Zhao Zunxing fell silent for a moment, but ultimately couldn't suppress his curiosity and asked the question. Everyone nearby pricked up their ears, wanting to hear about the circumstances of Yu Xiaogang's unique spirit. Yes, both Little Dragon and I can mobilize the spirit abilities of the spirit rings and fight side by side. Yu Xiaogang nodded. In other words, you alone can count as 2 combatants. Also, what was with the spirit ability you used just now? both the sword and the light point attacks from the sky. What exactly is the situation with your first spirit skill? Zhao Zunxing pressed further. He knew it was very impolite to question a spirit master about their spirit ability like this. But after this battle, Zhao Zunxing finally understood why His Excellency Thunder had the confidence to send Yu Xiaogang to the Spirit Hall Academy's elite class. Based on this battle alone, Yu Xiaogang could completely establish a firm foothold in his elite class. Qin Heiyu was considered one of the more outstanding students among the batch he was currently leading. Being able to defeat Qin Heiyu so easily meant that Yu Xiaogang's actual combat power ranked among the best in the elite class. His previous idea of using the student's strength to make Yu Xiaogang back out was no longer feasible. Since Yu Xiaogang was now a student he was responsible for, as a teacher, he had the right to know the student's situation. My first spirit skill is called Soul Power Release. It simply releases spirit power in a way I deem appropriate. For example, releasing spirit power as a one-time attack, or forming spirit power into a fixed shape to assist in combat. Yu Xiaogang gave a simple introduction of his first spirit skill. Of course, it was a description of the first spirit skill that hid a lot of key information. So it's that type of spirit ability. If used well, this skill can serve you for a very long time. I suppose I should expect nothing less from a skill brought by a 1,000-year first soul ring. Zhao Zunxing came to a sudden realization, understanding the nature of Yu Xiaogang's first spirit skill. Then what about the second spirit skill? Hearing this, Qin Heiyu, who was somewhat dejected by his defeat, pricked up his ears. Until the battle ended, Yu Xiaogang had only ever used his first spirit skill against him, not even touching his second spirit skill. This made Qin Heiyu feel like he had no face left to show anyone. My second spirit skill, how about we have another battle and let everyone see it through combat? Yu Xiaogang suggested with a smile. That works too, who wants to fight Yu Xiaogang? Zhao Zunxing nodded in agreement, and just as his gaze swept over the crowd beside him, Yu Xiaogang's voice rang out again. Teacher Zhao, my second spirit skill is more suited for group combat, so feel free to have a few more people come up. Yu Xiaogang's words echoed in everyone's ears. The training ground fell silent once more. What did he just say? A student dug at his ear, somewhat unable to believe it. He said his second spirit skill is suited for group combat, and told us to have more people fight him. Isn't he being a bit too arrogant? I think so too. As those words fell, many students in the elite class felt anger rising in their hearts. Good grief, with the strength of a spirit grandmaster, he defeated one spirit ancestor, and that wasn't enough. He even wants a whole group of them to go at him together. Although after the previous battle, everyone felt that Yu Xiaogang's confidence must stem from his second spirit skill being very powerful. But isn't this being a bit too cocky? Does he really look down on them, a group of spirit ancestors, that much? Teacher Zhao, since he's so confident, let's give him what he wants. That's right, I want to join the fight. I want to see if he's really that amazing. Exactly, I refuse to believe that a mere spirit grandmaster can defeat a whole group of us spirit ancestors. Yeah, no one gets to be this arrogant in front of us. The students of the elite class shouted out one after another. Fine then, 5 of you come up, but let me say this first, if you lose, the subsequent training won't be at the current level anymore. Zhao Zunxing glanced at the crowd, volunteering for the fight. Through the battle with Qin Heiyu, Zhao Zunxing already understood that Yu Xiaogang was not like the spirit masters he had encountered in the past. Common sense did not apply to him. In that case, he would grant his wish and see if he truly had the ability, or if he was just acting tough. Soon, 5 students came to the center of the field and stood opposite Yu Xiaogang. The 5 people took turns announcing their names, ranks, and spirits. At Zhao Zunxing's command, the 5 of them summoned their spirits simultaneously. In an instant, the air was filled with spirit rings. Completing their martial soul possession, the 5 exchanged looks, and with a shout of "Let's go together," they charged toward Yu Xiaogang at the same time. They planned to take Yu Xiaogang down in one wave, giving him no chances at all. However, seeing the 5 people charging at him, Yu Xiaogang instead smiled. Although his second spirit skill had a large range, the training ground was also quite big. If the 5 of them had attacked in waves, Yu Xiaogang might have found it a bit more troublesome. But charging all at once, wasn't this just giving him the opportunity to demonstrate the power of his second spirit skill? Since they were being so cooperative, he couldn't let their good intentions go to waste. Little Dragon. Zhaowu. With a call, Little Dragon flew above Yu Xiaogang's head, and the second soul ring shone brightly. Second spirit skill, soul-shaking tremor. Zhao. Chapter 100. Yu Xiaogang. Would you believe me if I said I didn't do it on purpose? Zhao. The roar of the little dragon spread throughout the training ground. At the same time, a surge of mental force also spread in all directions along with the roar. Is this a mental-type spirit ability? Zhao Zunxing, sensing the state of Yu Xiaogang's second spirit skill, raised an eyebrow. Through the first spirit skill, he had already been able to clearly determine that the little dragon's attribute was the light attribute. Logically speaking, Yu Xiaogang's second spirit skill should also be of the light attribute. But in reality, it was of the mental attribute. This change left Zhao Zunxing somewhat puzzled. Of course, despite his confusion, he didn't go so far as to think there was anything wrong with Yu Xiaogang's second spirit skill. After all, Yu Xiaogang's father was Yu Yuanzhen. With him overseeing things, Yu Xiaogang certainly wouldn't go wrong in his choice of spirit beast. While Zhao Zunxing was pondering these matters, on the other side, all 5 people charging straight at Yu Xiaogang were affected by his second spirit skill. Under the influence of the soul-shaking tremor, the few of them stopped in their tracks, circulating their spirit power in an attempt to resist the effects of this move. But unfortunately, to resist this move of Yu Xiaogang's, one could only do so by surpassing Yu Xiaogang mentally. None of the 5 spirit masters present could achieve this. And so, after a moment of mental daze, the 5 of them shook their heads. Feeling no change in their bodies, they immediately thought that this was all there was to Yu Xiaogang's second spirit skill. It's nothing special after all. Go! A pleasant female voice rang out. However, the moment the voice sounded, the speaker and another person sensed that something was wrong. The other 3 didn't notice anything amiss. They prepared to rush directly to Yu Xiaogang's side to besiege him. But in the next second, ouch, what are you doing? Of the 3 spirit masters rushing toward Yu Xiaogang, one of them changed direction and charged straight into another spirit master beside him, and the 2 collided in a full embrace. The only spirit master who normally reached Yu Xiaogang shifted his thoughts, intending to release his first spirit skill. But who would have thought? Thump! With a soft sound, that spirit master knelt directly in front of Yu Xiaogang. Looking at his kneeling legs and then up at a stunned Yu Xiaogang, the spirit master's mind went completely blank. At the same time, the spirit master, who had fallen after being collided with, tried to get up. But he was shocked to find that when he tried to act on his thought of getting up, his hand actually began to uncontrollably climb onto the other person's waist, pulling them into his arms. You, what are you trying to do? The spirit master, who had knocked down his teammate, was about to apologize when he noticed his teammate's hands weren't being very honest, and he almost screamed out loud. He wanted to get up, but found that his body seemed to have a mind of its own, actually leaning against his teammate's chest in a delicate and clingy manner. 2 men were lying on the ground like that, one acting delicate and clingy, the other reaching out to hold the waist. What a harmonious scene! Of course, provided one didn't look at their terrified and bewildered faces. On the other side, the male and female spirit masters who had first noticed something was wrong and hadn't rushed forward with the other 3 were now pointing at each other's faces in total panic. You, that's my body. The male spirit master shrank back, striking a weak and helpless pose. And the female spirit master was also staring at the male spirit master opposite her, unable to snap out of it for a long time. In short, what was displayed before everyone was a scene of chaotic and bizarre behavior. All right, everyone stop. Seeing this chaotic scene, Zhao Zunxing immediately understood roughly what was going on. He gave Yu Xiaogang an annoyed look. He hadn't expected this kid's second spirit skill to be so heaven-defying. It really was just as he had said. This spirit ability was quite suitable for group battles, and it took a few more people to demonstrate the heaven-defying nature of this move. Teacher, what's happening to us? The male spirit master looked at Zhao Zunxing while whimpering, causing Zhao Zunxing's expression to become somewhat distorted. A strong man nearly 2 meters tall striking the pose of a frail woman, this scene was truly an eyesore. Yu Xiaogang, explain yourself. Zhao Zunxing handed the floor to Yu Xiaogang, letting him explain the current situation. The 5 spirit masters affected by Yu Xiaogang's second spirit skill all looked at him with gnashed teeth. After this ordeal, they could all imagine how they would be ridiculed by their classmates in the future. Don't be in such a hurry to explain, just release your second spirit skill for us first. Can't we just admit defeat? Exactly, and I'm telling you, can you not stay so close to me? You're the one who won't let go of me, okay? Keep your hands still. The 2 male spirit masters, lingering on the ground, spoke with unprecedented urgency. Hearing their words, everyone looked at them and was then amused by their current state. After everyone had laughed for a while, Yu Xiaogang also snapped out of his daze. Looking at the sorrowful and indignant gazes the few of them directed at him, Yu Xiaogang wanted to swear that none of this was intentional. He just didn't know if anyone would believe him. Sorry, you two, I currently can't deactivate my second spirit skill, but this influence will probably only last for a few to a dozen minutes. Just bear with it. Also, during this time, don't even think about trying to control your bodies to do anything. Because even I, the user of this spirit ability, don't know exactly what actions will be performed. Yu Xiaogang said, giving the 2 of them a reminder in passing. Hearing this, the 2 of them almost burst into tears. In other words, we have to stay all tangled up like this for several to a dozen minutes. Heavens! After consoling the 2, Yu Xiaogang finally began to explain his second spirit skill to everyone. My second spirit skill is called soul-shaking tremor. Simply put, it uses a powerful mental shock to cause a spirit master's soul to temporarily leave their body. Once the soul returns to its place, there will be a period where the physical body and the soul do not match. In this situation, if you want to raise your hand, you might kick your leg or perhaps jump up. In any case, you just can't control your own body. Hearing this, everyone looked at the 2 hugging each other, as well as the fellow kneeling on the ground. This inability to control the body sounded simple, but the actual experience was truly heaven-defying. In any case, everyone had already made up their minds that in future sparring matches with Yu Xiaogang, they would absolutely forbid him from using this second spirit skill. They didn't want to suffer a social death like these 3 guys. Then what about us? The male spirit master asked while whimpering. As I said before, my second spirit skill causes a spirit master's soul to temporarily leave their body. They might have only partially detached, but you too, likely because you are somewhat weak mentally, detached entirely. Then, when the souls returned to the bodies, they got the wrong ones, which is why you ended up like this. But don't worry, this state will only last for a while before returning to normal. You won't be stuck in someone else's body forever. Saying this, Yu Xiaogang glanced at the group of people affected by his second spirit skill. He felt emotional in his heart. In the future, if anyone provoked his life kai, he would use his second spirit skill to deal with them. With such a spirit ability that could cause social death at any time in his hands, he could practically run rampant without restraint. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to AI Otaku Studio, and don't forget to check out Infinite Novel Audio for more amazing content. See you in the next adventure.